Chair Pro Tem Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen.
Here.
Thank you.
We'll have a moment of silence followed by the pledge led by Councilman Lawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go to the city manager to lead us off in our workshop.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board and residents. Tonight is the budget workshop where we're going to go over the fiscal year 2021 accomplishments as well as provide you the goals and objectives that departments have worked on for fiscal year 2022. So this is the sequence of events for this evening's presentation. And it's important to note that all the goals and objectives that you will hear will come under Riviera Beach 2030. That was a plan that the board worked with staff back in 2019, and everything that we do as a municipal entity should coincide with our strategic goals and areas of focus. So as you get into your visioning session, which will be your subsequent retreat that you will have on the 28th, you'll have an opportunity to take a look at these areas of focus and see if there's any modifications or tweaks. So for those at home, it is enhance government stewardship, accelerate operational excellence, build great neighborhoods, achieve sustainable economics or economy, and strengthen community engagement. These are the fundamental aspects of everything that we do as an entity, especially back in 2021, should have coincided with those specific goals and objectives. So the departments have taken the time to take significant accomplishments and place them under those, as well as providing you with an update on their 2022 goals and objectives. With regards to the 2022 goals and objectives, if the board at any time during the department director's presentation needs additional comments or wants to provide additional comments or additional perspectives, please make sure that you do stop the speakers and provide that insight to us so we can make sure that that is incorporated in the final budget document for submission for you to consider. But the budget document is a spending tool, and the board sets the collective vision for the city, and then the resources are placed in the budget for the purposes of accomplishing those strategic areas of focus. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Fire Chief John Kerr to share with you the fiscal year 2021 accomplishments for fire rescue, and then share with you the goals and objectives for fire rescue.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Are we sitting or whichever you prefer? Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
Mr. Evans. So first and foremost, I want to start off by commending Riviera Beach Fire Rescue, the men and women that are on the front lines every day for what they've done this past year. I think the fire department has made exceptional leaps and bounds as it relates to the services that are provided to the community, and responding to a pandemic was definitely something that was not in our wheelhouse, but we responded to, learned from, and are going to look to get better moving forward. Excuse me. So as we discuss 2021 highlights and accomplishments, we had quite a few, and we narrowed them down as it relates to prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy. We are participating in government reimbursement programs that provide funds for those monies that are lost when we deal with patients that are under Medicare or Medicaid. And last year, we were able to bring $267,000 back to the city of Riviera Beach for those lost revenues. We assisted with obtaining appropriations funding for the design of the new EOC, worked with Mr. Evans and our administrative staff and our lobbyists to bring $1 million to the city of Riviera Beach for design of our EOC. We also assisted finance with completing a fire assessment study, looking at alternative ways to provide funding so we can continue down this road of excellence. We assisted with obtaining FEMA reimbursements for COVID-19, and throughout the pandemic, Mr. Sherman has elaborated on some of the funds that we were able to collect, and the majority of the documentation associated with that reimbursement originated at the fire department. And kudos to staff for maintaining that paperwork, because if you understand what a FEMA reimbursement looks like, it's not easy. Obtaining critical PPE to combat the COVID-19 pandemic through mission resource request, we were able to work with the state, and you'll hear in some of these subsequent accomplishments, one of them being our mutual aid agreement with the state of Florida allowed us to obtain some of this vital PPE at no cost to the city of Riviera Beach. That not only provided PPE to the employees, to our residents, but also allowed us to take care of our most vulnerable population and our citizens. As it relates to being great neighbors, as aforementioned, we had the statewide mutual aid agreement that was executed with the state of Florida. And at the time, it might not have seemed like a big deal, but if we realized what just happened in Surfside, without that statewide mutual aid agreement, you wouldn't have had those resources available to you in the state. So we were very proud to bring that to a conclusion. We renewed multiple mutual aid agreements, most importantly last year our renewal with West Palm Beach for mutual aid assistance, provided COVID-19 testing for our municipality and surrounding municipalities. We provided COVID-19 vaccinations for our community and surrounding municipalities, and we were able to vaccinate 7,227 individuals, which is nearly 15,000 doses of the vaccine. And it was a tremendous accomplishment, not just by fire, and I can't toot our horn without looking at those people that support us. Valerie Grimsley, Richard Blankenship, Terrence Bailey, Mr. Evans. There was a tremendous team effort last year that helped us get through that pandemic. We also assisted with working with Palm Beach County's Health Department to provide mobile vaccination sites throughout the community, which vaccinated upwards of another 500 individuals. As it relates to operational excellence, we established a point of distribution for COVID-19 testing, vaccinations, and food distributions. To put that in perspective, we were one of the first municipalities to do that, and one of only a handful of municipalities that had their own point of distribution in Palm Beach County, and that is definitely something we're extremely proud of. We established a specialized response unit, again, one of few municipalities that were able to pivot and put a specialized, dedicated COVID-19 response unit on the road. Provided testing, vaccinations, PPE for our seniors, our assisted living facilities. We went in, we provided training, decontamination for our assisted living facilities and senior centers, and we were very satisfied with our response, especially looking at what COVID-19 did to the elders, not just in our community, but in the nation as a whole. I wanted to say we successfully responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, but that pandemic is still ongoing. Today's latest report, we're still providing contact tracing. We still have individuals that are still testing positive for COVID. We are still working with Paula Reyes, who's our lead contact tracer, and providing contact tracing. So while I want to say we've been successful, there still is some more work to do. We were able to complete the design and begin the process of the relocation of Station 87 to the Wells Recreation Site. We obtained the site, began design, and are moving full steam ahead with the design and construction of Fire Station 88. Our government stewardship and accountability, we established and implemented closest unit response times to maintain or reduce our response times, revised EMS practices, implemented new pediatric emergency systems, and completed recertification for all of our paramedics and EMTs, which proved daunting during last year's issues. Community engagement and empowerment, participate in providing community updates. I'm sure you all probably had enough of those throughout the year, but we wanted to make sure that our community, and especially you all, our elected officials, were kept in the loop. PPE distribution, again, staff as a whole provided over 100,000 400,000 masks to residents. We were one of the only municipalities and actually kind of led the way in mailings of masks, which we then saw other municipalities follow in our footsteps. So we paved the way for many municipalities and kind of set the mark for what the expectation was as it relates to taking care of our community. We assisted places of worship with inspections and PPE at various events so that at some of these funerals that were occurring during the pandemic, we were able to assist with providing these families with some level of closure and keeping them as safe as possible as we went through those trying times. And then the drive-by parades, hundreds of them, making sure that we were able to celebrate individuals in our community when we were unable to gather as friends and family. So what do we look forward to in 2022? A lot. The fire department expects to be extremely busy in this upcoming year. We are going to continue to participate in these government reimbursement programs for Medicare and Medicaid, and we are happy to announce that through the hard work of our finance department and also our fire department, we are going to be able to double the revenue from $267,000 to $484,000 this upcoming year, which we look to use some of those funds to enhance our EMS department and finally staff the position of EMS captains that is so much needed within the fire service. We're going to identify government-funded programs that will produce much-needed services. I've had conversations with some of you, if not all of you, about community paramedicine, what a program like that can bring to our community. Many times, we have some of our elder citizens who go to the hospital, they leave the hospital and they're handed 5 bottles of medication. They don't know what it's for. They don't know why they're taking it. They were just told to take it. Community paramedicine will bring an educational component and a follow-up component to our citizens once they're released from the hospital. Obtain additional appropriation fundings for public safety needs and continue to explore options for additional funding. Great neighbors, we're going to continue to build the model for what is known as community risk reduction. We are seeing it pop up throughout the county, and it is my goal to make sure that that takes root here in Riviera Beach so we can actually reduce those risks within our community, whether it be medical, whether it be fire prevention. It really covers the gambit and also deals with community resilience. We want to maintain our mutual aid agreements with our neighboring municipalities and ensure that resources are available to Riviera Beach. We are a small city with big city concerns, and many times some of our larger events require mutual aid outside of Riviera Beach, and I want to make sure we foster those relationships so we are never in need. And we want to continue training with our neighboring municipalities. Assistant Chief Keith Golden is in the process right now of spearheading a multi-company, multi-agency regional drill at the Port of Palm Beach next month, where we're going to have Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach, that are all going to be working together on a 3-pronged drill. And this, again, is just going to help with that continuity, that mutual aid, and that resilience. And kudos to him and the work he's put in on that. Operational excellence, we want to relocate Fire Station 87 to its temporary site. We want to begin construction of Fire Station 88. We want to begin the design of Fire Station 86. And we want to finalize a long-term deal with the VA as it relates to station number 89. That is my main focus. Infrastructure next year is what's needed. We've taken care of the majority of our apparatus and our equipment, and right now we're in dreadful need of addressing our infrastructure. Government stewardship and accountability, we're going to work with Human Resources and our local union to revise our rules and regulations. We want to revise the city's comprehensive emergency management plan, our continuity of operations plan, and our continuity of government plan. This is a much-needed revision. Our CEMP was last revised some 10, 15 years ago, and as your city's emergency manager, it is about time that we update this and bring us into or up to standard with those requirements. We also want to continue to provide guidance for our city employees on NIMS and ICS training. Without the NIMS and ICS training models and formats, we would not have been able to get through this pandemic. And you've heard these terms at our meetings. We have our section chiefs and our operational chiefs and our incident commander and our strike teams and our task force. All of this is part of that system, and it is much needed that we enhance and build upon that. Community engagement, Riviera Beach Fire Rescue is going to continue to do what it's always done, and that's support the community. We want to look to establish a hands-only CPR, AED, and Stop the Bleed training program. We want to continue providing pub ed now that COVID has slowed down. We won't call it ended. We do want to make sure that we get back out to our schools and talk to our youth and make sure we're providing that pub ed that is always of value. Continue providing our foster relationships with the Boys and Girls Club. We've just recently entered into some talks with the Boys and Girls Club to engage our youth in the fire service. One of the things we want to do is look to create a program that mentors members of our community and current employees to possibly look at becoming a firefighter. These are just some of the overarching goals and accomplishments, but none of this could be done without the men and women of Riviera Beach Fire Rescue. And I want to tell you that this past year, they have served you, they have served your community with courage and compassion. And I can't say enough about your fire department and how proud I am of those men and women. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, thank you so much for the presentation, the work that you do in our community, and constantly staying on point. Literally, you were part of the team that carried us through this pandemic, so we commend you, we applaud you, we thank you for the work that you did in the city. Have we identified, or are we members of the National Junior Firefighter Program? Do we have that type of program here, or have we had it here in the community?
I would have to defer to Assistant Chief Golden. He's been working with many grassroots programs in different organizations on trying to bring young firefighters up, and maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the programs.
Hello. We are looking to reestablish a program like that. We're running into some small roadblocks right now with what would be the
Some of the challenges as we're talking about is obviously funding. Let's just really get down to when we had an Explorer program or a cadet program, there are overtime costs associated, there are equipment costs associated. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture children at a young age. The fire service is very unique. If you mess up, you don't get a second chance in the fire service. So we have to catch our youth early before they get in trouble with the law, before bad things or bad roads are presented to them. We got to get them on the straight and narrow. And Assistant Chief Golden has mentored 2 or 3 individuals that I know of, that one is employed with us now and 2 that are looking to become employed with us that are in and of around the community. It's a little more difficult than just we want to do this, and COVID has really squashed all of that as far as bringing people in and out. But we are also working with 2 high schools right now that have youth fire programs, and we're trying to reach out to them and augment and support their program. But one of the problems that we have is not just recruiting, but retaining.
Yeah.
We've recruited the diversity that's expected of Riviera Beach, but we haven't been able to retain. You look at our stations. I'll go to Gardens. I'll go to West Palm. I'll go to Palm Beach Gardens. I'll go to Boca. I'll go to Del Rey. So we really believe with these new stations coming out of the ground, our youth are going to see our equipment, our apparatus, and our stations, and they're not only going to want to work for Riviera Beach, but they're going to want to stay in Riviera Beach.
And Chief, to that point, that is the reason that I want us to create and mold that program internally, because we're investing a lot of city dollars into 4 new stations over the next few years. So I want to create the program so that we're not just attracting current talent that's already out there, but we're growing and molding it from the youth that are here now. So looking at some of these junior programs, looking at the option of actually putting some funding into it. So if we can kind of go back and take a look, if my colleagues would be in support of seeing what the process would be of actually creating this National Junior Firefighter Program, becoming a chapter there, and actually being a set location to actually harness some of these kids, starting as young as the age, I believe, is 8 years old, is where the chapter actually would allow for us to start. And we can actually train them from within. Firefighters make very good money coming out of high school with this degree, so that would be something where we could instill into the kids in this community and giving them a strong opportunity where we're just going to give them homegrown talent to go into these brand new stations, because we're going to be sought after by all firefighters once they see these 4 new stations come up, once they see the work and effort that our staff and that our team is putting together to build it. So I'd rather actually give the opportunities to our residents and to the kids from this community. So if we can look into that and possibly add that into a budget item, or within the next few years, to start to create that program to prepare for what's actually coming.
Well, on a side note, one of the things that I'm extremely excited about is when we talked about the build of Station 88, we're actually going to have students from some of the local schools mentoring at those fire stations, and it might be a great opportunity then to capture some of those and look to parlay that into some of the programs that you're talking about as well.
And the new hires that came in, I was so appreciative of some of the guys. Some of the kids that came in were actually children of some of the firefighters in our department, which I commended. I was so proud of that. I want to do more of that. I want to see more of that. And I want to see more kids actually that look like me that come into the department. I want to give that opportunity to some of our young men and women that come from the city to have those opportunities as well. So if we can look into that aspect, because coming out of this pandemic, the concern that I see is that there's not as many opportunities for especially these kids. There's a lot of kids that have coming out of the being locked in their home for a year and a half. So I want to give them something and give them as many opportunities and benefits and things that's going on in the community as possible. So if we could possibly look into that, to include that into this budget, if my colleagues could support something of that sort.
Understood.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Just before the meeting, Chief, you and I had a conversation about the fact that the Palm Beach North Chamber, the 10 municipalities in the Palm Beach North Chamber just obtained a grant to work on resiliency. Will that work be encompassed in the CEMP, the City's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan? Where does that fit in your goals? Where does that resiliency piece fit?
So it all ties together. Grant funding, local mitigation strategy, grant funding, community resiliency, the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, the COOP, Continuity of Operations Plan, and the COG, the Continuity of Government Plan, are the foundations of resiliency. So resiliency is obviously preparing for, responding to, and recovering from an event. Well, we have to have the proper plan in place to execute each one of those, so they do all tie together. And as part of the CEMP, there is a THIRA, a Threat Hazard Identification Risk Assessment, that will look at those things tied to resilience. What are our threats? What are our weaknesses? Kind of like your SWOT analysis, but looking at it more holistically to facilities, our residents, their ability to rebound and recover, our gas stations, being able to provide fuel. All of those things tie in perfectly.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the chief? Chief, I wanted to ask a question. What specifically are you doing to ensure that the firefighters, in terms of race, are reflective of the population in this city? Because based on the statistics that I see, it is not. So is there a specific plan to be able to recruit more African American or Hispanic individuals for the fire department?
So it becomes difficult. Number one is we're not seeing the diversity coming out of the fire academies. So we think our approach is to capture our youth while they're young and get them interested in the fire service. We see diversity coming out of police academies. We see diversity coming out of other programs, but when we go to the local fire college, when we go to some of the local paramedic schools, we're not seeing what we would like to see. I can't change who registers for school, but what I can change is a child's desire to become. So it is very difficult. And one of the things that is very challenging is every other municipality is looking for the same diversity that we are. And some of these municipalities are able to retain better and recruit better, but we can do a better job within our community, making sure that kids understand what the fire service is and really explain to them the benefits of a career, not just a job.
So you mean to tell me that across the country, you can't recruit? I'm not saying just here, I'm just saying recruiting across the country, there are no African Americans or Latinos that are coming out of fire schools across the country.
Oh, they absolutely are. And what we have is some of the challenges that we've found, and Assistant Chief Golden was actually in charge of our last hiring process. There's a lot of nuances to it. So we have a test that's done by a third party to demonstrate competency in the skills of the job. HR then provides us a list of the individuals that have passed that test. We scour that list for diversity. We thought we had the diversity in this hiring group, but Assistant Chief Golden will tell you we had an individual that just didn't show up, one or two.
Three individuals.
I'm sorry, we had 3 individuals of diversity that we thought would fit our organization that just didn't show up for the interview. They passed the test, they qualified, no phone call, reached out to them, no answer back. So we're trying and doing the best we can. We can always try harder, but there's a lot of challenges in the way.
I think that would be the case here. You need to be very creative in terms of going outside of this community and outside of even the state if you have to be able to find additional firefighters that reflect the demographics of this city. So I would like to see a specific plan that you guys put together that will take you outside of this community, outside of the state, if you have to be able to recruit additional firefighters that look like this city.
We will look into that. Outside of the state will be difficult due to licensing purposes, but we can do a better job of getting out there and, preparing. And I understand, message received. We will work harder.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I can tell you from, my experience, my sister went to school to be a firefighter in the state of Florida, and as soon as she stepped off the graduation stage, she was offered $5,000 more and paying all relocation expenses to another state. So it's very competitive, especially when you're looking at diversity, and the push also is for looking for females in the fire service. One of the things that if the board wants to move in that direction and we are going to be aggressive, you're also going to have to possibly consider paying the cost for someone to go to school, and then as part of that arrangement, then they're required to be an employee of the agency, because you're going to have to take very aggressive steps to be able to get those folks, because it's so competitive, especially for diverse candidates. As soon as they graduate, all the big agencies are there trying to get them into the fire service. So we can sit and have a discussion at the staff level and see what we can do. And if it requires us making a deviation from the existing funds that we have, we can come to the board with some recommendations for considerations prior to the adoption of your budget.
Thank you. That's certainly what I'd like to see. I would like to see that come before us, because what needs to happen is that we have to have a force that looks like the people who live in this city. So we want to be able to recruit. If we have to be creative in doing that, then I'm sure that we can, but I know that we can. So I would definitely want you to go in that direction and to bring something back to us to be able to see how this will work for our city.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. And to that point as well, as our city manager stated, possibly looking at a tiered process, looking at something that actually encourages growth and engagement over the next few years while we're actually developing building facilities. because retention, as you said, is a difficult thing when we have dilapidated inferior facilities compared to some of these other locations. And then also looking at the next 3 to 5 years with trying to raise funds and bringing in money to actually provide that hiring bonus or that sign-on bonus to some of the recruits that we've actually trained with these programs that Chief Golden is actually already looking into, and some additional programming. So starting from the bottom where we can actually train some of these youth and some of the young people from our community while we're actually developing our facilities, so that when we do have top-of-the-line facilities, state-of-the-art facilities, we can actually hire from the pool that we have with the funding that we have while we've already sparked their interest from young. So looking at it not possibly just to throw money at individuals now, because hiring, bringing them in, paying for them to school, having a requirement of 12 months to 2 years is not sufficient when we want them to be lifetime firefighters here in the city. So literally, we pay for them, we put some money into them, and then they want to go to a different facility because we're not going to have all of our stations up and running for the next, it's going to take a little bit of time to get them developed. So possibly creating a system that actually starts from young, develops these kids, and then also looks to make sure that we can hire from within and hire some of the people from our community that look like myself in my chair. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. And going forward, I'd like to see a recruitment plan that's directed at minorities.
Understood.
Very good. Any other questions for the fire chief, assistant fire chief?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I was waiting on someone to acknowledge that the chairperson was on the record.
Oh, you're right.
You are the chair. Oh, yeah.
He has the gavel.
I just never heard it.
I am here.
The chair is here.
Oh, okay.
The chair is here. The champ is here.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And I have to certainly commend, and I said this to Mr. Evans, Madam Chair, if I can. You know,
Yes, go ahead.
we turned the whole city into a public health department, and, you know, by all accounts, it went off seamlessly. Certainly your department, and obviously there was some help from others, but the whole entire team. So, you know, I know you guys had a lot of work, and certainly this was like put on right as the events occurred. So I got to certainly tip my hat. Thank you so much, Fire Department, as well as the city manager and those others, Ms. Grimsley and Mr. Blankenship, who, you know, conducted the, and obviously the police. And there's others, so let me not start by the names, but there was really a joint effort, and I know certainly the Fire Department was there every step of the way. Thank you guys for leading the way on that. Thank you. And thank you for the highlights.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I was thinking of holding all of my accolades for the end, what everybody did there, but I'm sure maybe everyone won't be around, so I did want to thank you all. You all were definitely at the forefront, as Mr. McCoy just stated, and just looking at some of the initiatives that you're putting through and fighting for having the new fire stations. I know it's been a long time coming, but I'm hoping to see it happen very soon. Well, we will. But, you know, just your dedication to what you all do is so refreshing, because I know it's a tough and difficult job that you all do, but you come refreshed to do it every single day, and it shows. And so I really appreciate what you all are doing. And you should be proud of the accomplishments that you all have made this year. So look forward to next year.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions for the chief and assistant chief? Thank you so much for your presentation and for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next presentation will be made by Police Chief Nathan Osgood.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Good evening, Madam Chair, Pro Tem,
Good evening.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Chief Nate Osgood representing the great city of Riviera Beach Police Department. So first, I too would like to compliment the work the men and women do here in the city of Riviera Beach Police Department. I can tell you firsthand, I understand the hard job they have each and every day, going out, dealing with a lot of stressful calls. I come in, I talk to them, I understand what they're going through. And sometimes I have to sit there and pat them on the back and say, good job, thank you, let's move on. So first, I would like to start off with fiscal year 2021 highlights. Under the department, we have vigorously pursued criminal prosecution. So one of the first things I did when I got here, I pulled a criminal investigation division in and put in all the violent crimes that's pending. And with that said, looking at the violent crimes, we took a look at the cases that we believe should have and should be prosecuted. So the first thing we did, we took the strongest cases and the evidence and said, let's go after these cases and let's have conversation with the state attorney's office, one being the state attorney himself. So after we had these meetings with them, we seem to have made some highlights, some headways. We also elicit the help of a former prosecutor, a person with a high reputation in the field of prosecution, Mr. Chuck Morton. He came in to our office and been meeting with us, going over our high-profile cases, violent crime cases, gun cases, homicide cases. Mr. Morton sat down and he was honest. He gave us facts. He gave us straight talk, what we can do better and where the agency can do better and where the state attorney's office can do better. So with that said, we've been meeting with the state attorney's office basically, you can say bi-weekly, discussing our cases. We have done relentless follow-up on all of our cases. That includes any case that we make an arrest on for violent crime. If it's a no-file, we take that case back to the state attorney's office. We ask, why is this case been no-file? So we have turned the heat up. We have been successful in getting at least 60% of our cases refiled that they no-file. We project that we will clear 25% of our major cases. That's the violent crimes, the gun crimes, and we're on that task right now to do so. The Great Neighborhood, we purchased bicycles. We implemented the bicycle unit, and every now and then you'll see where bicycles, officers will ride around, patrol on bicycles in neighborhoods and also at special events. Now, what we have is a unit, but we pull them from special road patrol and we put them together as a unit. So they're not a separate standalone unit. Great Neighborhood, we also worked with the city attorney's office and we implemented the code enforcement chronic nuisance ordinance. We added an additional 33 strong ordinance to this ordinance that we can no longer keep going on the same calls each and every night, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So now we can serve them, the owners of the landlord or the homeowner, whomever it is, paperwork to bring their property up to code. Pull their dog in. Just the other day, we had to shoot and kill a dog because the owners did not lock their dog away. The dog went out and attacked a resident. The police gets in the area, try to detain the dog. The dog goes to attack the police officer. The police officer ended up shooting and killing the one dog. One dog ran away. So these are kind of complaints we get all the time. Loose dogs running around. You go and talk to the homeowners, there's nothing can be done about it. So now we strengthen the code enforcement ordinance with chronic nuisance abatements, and I think they're going to see some headways and people are going to be abiding by the policies, the ordinance. Operational excellence, complete a full review of policy and procedures. So each and every day, first of all, let me start, every day we have an assessor, accreditation manager who come in and review policies and all the procedures in our police department. Every Monday morning, the command staff meeting, along with city attorney, from the city attorney's office, Ms. Denise Montumble, and sometimes we're bringing a special person from the outside, an attorney, to look at our policies, and we go over our policies and rewrite all of our critical incidents policies, from use of force, K-9, and so forth. We bring it all the way down to even meal breaks. We take a look at all of our policies, and we spend a couple of hours on this every Monday morning, and not to mention throughout the week, we look at the not critical incidents policies. As I move along, as you feel free, you can stop any time and ask a question before I move on, but I'll keep going. Government stewardship and accountability. You see here we have what we call Blue Team IA Pro. This is a special software tool that most larger agencies use to keep track and accountability of internal affairs cases, all types of complaints. No one can come in ever and say that you didn't have this or you're not tracking certain complaints. So we bring in IA Pro Blue Team software, and that's something we put in for the budget last year, and we got it this year. We're working on it. We're getting all the officers trained on it, all the management team, supervisors trained on this program. And so we, for an example, we can be able to keep better track of a person of an early warning system. So let's say we have an officer and we're not paying attention to his use of force. This program will automatically flag him to tell you he had 3 or 4 different use of force in 1 month, even if it was a all necessary use of force. It would still flag him for us to take a look at him. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. We may just need to move him out of the area and talk to him to make sure he or she are doing the right thing with the use of force, and give the supervisors a reason to take a look at all types of complaints, and not just the supervisor management. Community engagement and empowerment, the Riviera Beach Police Athletic League. I'm very proud of this program we started, the PAL program, because we're doing some good things here. Our program, we have around 60 youth inside this program, and it's probably going to continue to grow. We're in the summertime right now, and our officers, and led by Officer Nance, are still out meeting with the youth. And part of it is not just the police activities. There's a maintenance part to this. We followed up with their schools, followed up with their parents. We talked to the kids, and each and every day you'll see some of our police officers dealing with some of the youth right now. And it's not always organized activities you're going to see the youth participate in, but we have, I'm proud of this, we won 5 trophies so far. We have done fishing tournaments. We have done dance. We have diving coming up, not diving, but snorkeling coming up. And we're looking to take them to the National Crime and the Blight Community Conference up in Orlando next month. And we're looking to take about 6 or 8 youth up to Orlando. So that's going to be a plus. They have a special class seminar for youth dealing with how to help them grow and advance. And one of the things that we have to realize, we have to reach our youth, our young people now. If we don't reach them now, the streets will get them now. So our goal is to keep on bringing the youth in. Every now and then, let me go back to PAL, one thing here. You'll see a youth bring a friend. Somebody we didn't recruit, but one of his friends brought on to us. He said, can my friend come? Of course. So that's something we're proud of also, because it's going to grow on its own with no help of us. Community engagement and empowerment. To give you a little bit more about that, we have also, let me go back to some of the notes I put here. We also have done so many community drive-bys with the birthday, graduation celebrations. Anytime someone calls us and asks, can we participate in any of their community engagements, no matter what, we make it happen. We go out to their community and make sure we can get a drive-by for you. Many of you have been even part of this. Let's go over to the 2022 goals. Okay. So we currently have sought out stakeholders for the board of directors for the PAL program. We have 12 board members right now, and we're going to be doing a vote for officers come August 3rd. So if you know anybody who are interested in the to be a board member for the Police Athletic League, please do so. We have organizations right now willing to donate money to this activity, so we would like to get them involved. Okay, great neighborhoods. So we have identified 2 locations for substations. The YEP is one, and that was already brought to the board for approval. And we have also the old Stony Brooks Azure Estates. met with the management team at Azure State, and they have already given us the building. They're gutting the building out now. They're doing renovation on it. We're taking our team over to take a look at the building, and along with their team to talk about what renovations we need. That is the old rec building. If you go through the guard gate, it's to the right, midway down to the right against the wall. So what they're gonna do, they're gonna actually cut out the wall that sits against San Conway Road. They're gonna cut it out, and they're gonna make that a entrance gate for the police cars to come in, and we can bring in our prisoners there or booking. Then we can roll them right back out, take them straight to the county jail. This is gonna give us some leeway versus taking them all the way across the tracks, across Blue Heron. You can do a lot of your paperwork here. This substation on the south side will service the entire south community. We hope to be able to have it house at least 8 to 10 police officers on the south side at all times, and then keep more police officers over at the YEP on the north side in Monroe Heights area all times. So we're gonna do away with always housing everybody at the main station. We're gonna have substation that we can put our police officers in. So we already spoke about the chronic nuisance abatements ordinance task force. So task force is kind of like I don't want to really call it a task force, but we working hand in hand with code enforcement and law enforcement. So we can go out and attack a problem area. Some areas doesn't always require just for code enforcement, it's going to require for police. For an example, we may get an issue up at the house dealing with a code issue, and also a code issue out in the swell or by the streets. Anything by the street after the sidewalk, that'd be for police to handle. Anything on the other side, that'd be for code. And a lot of our property is dual problems, so you have to get both out there at the same time. Otherwise, you have one taking care of one problem, the next day the police will come out and take care of the other. Operation Excellence Department will also schedule, we have passed initial assessment. So what we're doing here, we entered the CFA, that's the Florida accreditation. So we have our first mock interview coming, I think that's coming in November. So they're gonna come in, they're gonna take a look at our files, our folders, our internal affairs reports. They're gonna take a look at our records department, use of force. They're gonna come through and take a look at all of the reports that we should be doing in national standards. They're gonna take a look at police gear, uniforms, how we filing our reports, how we maintain our reports. They're gonna look at our jail facility, police cars, and our equipment. They're gonna make sure we are standardized with the rest of the nation at what they're expected of law enforcement, along with our training department. They're gonna take a look at our training. How much training do we get, and are we up to date on the certificates that we're supposed to have? So this is something that is needed. We don't want to play around with this. That's why we push hard each and every day on making sure we follow the standards, not just here in the state of Florida, but nationally. We have to follow the standards to make sure we are following, we don't get ourselves in a trick bag. I'm sorry. So government stewardship and accountability, consistent with the recommendation for the annual comprehensive study, we have did away with the way we do business as far as police details. So what we have done, we have moved into, it's called, we just had a meeting with today, it slips my mind, but extra duties, right here, extra duty details. So we moved into extra duty details to handle our details. Now they handle many details in Palm Beach County, and so it would no longer be held, our details no longer be run by the city of Riviera Beach or from the police department. So we're also putting out notification to our vendors and to our police officers to let them know this is the way we're gonna do business now. They're gonna make the deposit directly into the payroll check, and they will handle the W-9s for the officers. There's no cost to the city on this. It's going to be passed off to the vendors. Community engagement and empowerment, develop a social media page and provide current police activities and arrests. So we actually have this page now. We just got to update it and make it, we got to bring it to speed with, we want to make it look, I don't want to say more professional, but there's some things that we're taking a look at that we know we can do better with this page. We would like to do a booking page that's going to show all of our arrests in the city of Riviera Beach. We would like to show all of the good stuff that we're doing, and we also want to put together on the page any person wanted. If we're looking for a wanted person in the city of Riviera Beach, or even in the county that may have come through, we're going to put this on this page as well. And that concludes my report, ma'am.
Madam Chair?
Very good, thank you, Chief. Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask about, with the PAL program, at one point, I know we had discussions about the boxing, being able to add boxing to the program itself. Have you had any contact with anyone on how we can do that at some point?
Yes, boxing is going to be kind of one of those things, kind of a little pricey, but that's something we do want to move into. We're going to need the headgear, equipment. We're going to have medic on standby, and we have to have proper trainers. People, and we do have that in the police department. We're going to have people who can train to make sure we don't have youth swinging so hard at the head. We don't want to have anybody with head injuries with
Right.
this. But the boxing is something that can come along. We're going to look into it.
Is there a way to partner with another business maybe that could provide some of those services for us instead of it necessarily, like doing some sort of contract with an organization?
Yes, ma'am. We're, well, once we get the board off the ground, which is
Okay.
August
Okay.
3rd, we can move quickly into fundraising initiatives. And that's one of the things we were looking at on how to bring together a ring, a boxing. We're going to have to get them boxing glove, headgear,
Right.
cuffs, shorts, shoes,
Right, right.
and proper training, the tape and everything else. So what we'll do, we have to look at the equipment needed and people with expertise in that area to be able to do the training for the youth.
Right, okay, so basically a little bit down the line, instead of, don't see that happening during this budget.
It's
Yeah.
not going to happen on this budget here, not with the budget, but I can't say, I'm not saying that it won't happen anytime soon. It's something that we have talked about to see if we can move it. Right now, we just don't have the personnel to put it together.
Okay. And of course, thank you for all that you all do. We know that it's not an easy job at all, what you all do, and you continue to work at it and making our agency better and more respectable than over the past, over many years, actually. And so I appreciate everything that you all are doing. You have accomplished quite a few tasks here, and looking forward to the goals that are being set for the next year.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, do you use a CompStat process?
Yes.
Okay, so you engage in a lot of data-driven decision-making. You use the data that you get on the crime.
Yes, ma'am. So when I got here, we implemented CompStat, and so we keep proper tracking of all of our crime, not just the Part 1 crime, all the larceny, all the, you name it, we just keep it, all track of the crime that is committed, from burglary, pickpocketing, all of our arrests. We keep track of the stats on traffic tickets, on which officer make arrests, field interrogation cards. So we have CompStat tracking report, not just for each individual and crime, but for each area.
Okay, so I would really like to see, as one of the goals, using some of that data to say, okay, we're here now, and we want to reduce the crime rate in these various areas, and that could be one of your goals for 2022. If you could think about that, it would make me happy.
Yeah, Councilperson, that's actually a weekly goal we do. We take a look at our CompStat report, and we go back and we meet with the shifts,
Okay,
and we go over the crime trend in each zone, and we talk about the burglaries that's been committed in the zone. We also have a top 10 target list of individuals who's committing crime, and top 10 list of each spot in that area that needs to be focused on attention.
Okay.
So that's something we currently do, you can say weekly, we look at it. And we have these meetings, we get our report every Monday, and then the shift major along with the captains and I'll pop in at times, we go over the ComStat reports with the shifts.
Okay. One of the things that deters people from investing in Riviera Beach is obviously our crime rate. And so I think that's paramount for all of us to say, okay, we've got to get that either, we've got to get it looking better for real, that there is less crime, and also we've got to portray the fact to the rest of the broader community that we're working on this and that we have a plan. So that's really important.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks very much.
Councilperson, we also, with that said, we've seized last year, total last year, we seized 172 firearms, illegal firearms from the streets, 172.
Wow.
This year, we have seized 160 illegal firearms from the streets. So we seized more weapons from the streets this year, illegal firearms, than we did last year. We also have a 40% clearance rate on property crimes, a little bit higher than we had last year.
Great, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Any other questions for the chief? Chief, you know what I'm going to say, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Chief and I have, oh, you want a question?
No, I'm just looking.
Oh, we have conversations about crime in this community at least once a week. And I call the chief and I say, listen, this has gotten out of control. We're going to have to do something about this crime in the city. So we have these conversations because he, as well as myself, are very concerned about the crime in this city. I'm outside in my backyard and I hear gunshots, like often. So this is something that is also very near and dear to my heart. We talk about community policing. We talk about a lot of the older people in this community say that the police need to get out of the car, they need to walk around, they need to have conversations with the neighbors, they need to interact more with the people in the community, and I agree with that. We've had that conversation as well. And I think that the police officers are doing a very good job, but could do better. And I also had this conversation with the chief with the fact that it's going to take more than the police to be able to change the crime in the city. That is why issues like affordable housing, jobs, are going to be able to work hand in hand with the crime in the city, because we cannot put it all on the shoulders of the police to be able to solve our problems. We have to be able to have it to be a community issue and not just a police issue. So I appreciate your presentation. And I really appreciate the work that you guys do for the city. But as all of us, we can always do better.
Yeah. Madam Chair, there's one thing I forgot to mention. I want to get this out real quick, is that we have partnered with the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearm, on task force to help target violent crime in our city. And right now, we're jointly working ongoing investigations in the city right now. We also have partnered with the Sheriff's Office and other, I'm going to say HIDA group. I don't know if you're familiar with HIDA. That's high intensity drug trafficking area. That's here in Riviera Beach or Palm Beach County. We have partnered with them. We joined them. The city of Riviera Beach is also part of the Regional Domestic Security Task Force. That's Region 7. That's Monroe County, Broward, Palm Beach County, Port St. Lucie County. And that comprises all these law enforcement agencies in this county, led by FDLE and the Sheriff's Office and ATF. So we're working jointly together to target some of this violent crime that we're looking at right now. That's why every now and then you will see an abundance of police officers load into our city to help target violent crime, but we're also doing stealth investigations on people who are committing the crime. So you're right, Madam Chair.
Follow up.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chief. And I was not going to talk about the task force that you guys use jointly, but I'm going to be quite candid. You know, this council, and I know it was probably during the tenure where Councilwoman Miller Anderson was on, appropriated funds to do BWC's body-worn cameras. And I have a particular concern that if we're going to equip our officers with all of the technology and apparatuses, I don't want the sheriff's department to come into my neighborhood and conduct these high-risk operations with the regular average Joe, and there's no accountability. The police body-worn cameras keeps everybody accountable, and I think we've had a conversation, and I don't want to go too far into details about it, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I don't want to be bombarded by members of the public when there is no accountability because we have several agencies coming throughout our city. I think when you first started, the biggest concern of mine, and this was even before we went into COVID, was that in the District 1 area, I have the small R.J. Hinckley Christian Education School. When they see militarized tanks going up the streets and flashbangs, and nobody's even giving us the courtesy of a heads up, that's a problem for me because, you know, that community specifically has a lot of senior citizens, and then obviously we had Washington Elementary at the time, but if they're going to conduct this kind of stuff in our backyard, I would hope that we're taking the lead, if at all possible, and that they're taking the same exact safety precautions that we're doing and making sure that if there is some, if there is something that's going to be high risk, that they at least do something such as using, I guess, what do we call it, our own police cars that can really assure individuals that this community is safe. But it just really doesn't sit well with me that we can seek the help of these other agencies, which I don't have a problem with, but they live by and they operate under a totally different standard, such as not having these the body-worn cameras and, you know, trying to use the least intrusive means that, if at all possible. Because, you know what, Chief, I think if there was money that was set aside for somebody to receive for reporting crimes, I probably would already have cleared the bank because anybody knows I don't have a problem with calling. And I think your officers all know me on a first-hand basis because it's those kind of things when you see something and you don't say something, it sits back in your mind that, you know what, I noticed that person. And I've had this conversation with the mayor specifically regarding the multiple fires that occurred at his property, so I don't even waste time because those are the kind of incidents that we can really get ahead of. But I just want to be clear that we have to have the same level of treatment, should expect the same level of treatment from those agencies that come into our community that, you know, that we've now made it a point that if our officers don't comply with these standards, then they may have to consider not being in our agency. But what's good for the gander should be good for the goose, Chief. And I really have some concerns without getting too far into details. And I yield back for a response.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions for?
I wanted the response.
No, I know I will, but I just want to make sure that was the last one. Okay, very good. Go ahead, sir.
Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, respond.
So, Councilman, I see your point, well taken. I can tell you, first and foremost, it's hard. Let me start on the back end first. You will not be given a heads up to say we're doing any type of operations. It's not proper to do so. It's not also safe. And in the past, that's been some of the biggest complaints from investigating agencies when I met with the ASAC and the SAC from the FBI, the ATF, and DEA, including the sheriff. They say when we come into Riviera Beach, they have been given heads up that we're doing an operation. And so therefore, and I know what you mean. I don't think you mean that type of heads up. I hope that's not what you meant. But we have to, they communicate with me, and they communicate with some of the upper command when we do joint operations. So the joint operation is not done blindly by the agencies. Now, talking about what equipment they use and what we have, they have equipment that we don't have many times, and then we have equipment, the body-worn cameras, that they don't have. Now, I know currently they are in the process and trying to get body-worn cameras for their deputies. They have a different, when I was in Broward, we're a large agency there, and we were probably one of the last to get body-worn cameras. So I know how hard it is to get it, to fund it. They don't get sometimes you get better funding and grant money for different agencies. You have to get it for every little city and for that the sheriff is contracting with over there, and they have to get them to agree on it. Some cities that I worked with down in Broward will tell you absolutely not. We don't want you to have body-worn cameras. And we had quite a few cities who pushed back on them. Most cities want you to have the transparency of body-worn cameras. Different people have it for different reasons on why they don't want it, why they misunderstand it. I would love to see all law enforcement agencies, I'm a big believer of body-worn cameras, to be outfitted with the body-worn cameras. Now, again, we have a city, and I want to say this the correct way so nobody misunderstand what I'm saying. As far as overall crime in Riviera Beach is really down. The numbers are going in the right direction. There's two areas that I'm concerned about, gun violence and aggravated assaults. So those two areas have been, sad to say, targeted. When you look at the people who were shot at, stabbed, they were targeted by their assailant. So it's not indiscriminate. It's not one of those random things that just happen. It's not. Sometimes, and the truth is, people put themselves in that lifestyle and they expect to get that lifestyle. What I would like to see is for working together with the community, we hear on who's doing the violent crimes. We just want the public to speak up a little more. And Chairperson Lanier is right. There is shootings in the streets almost every other day that you hear here. Now, I don't believe this is isolated to Riviera Beach, and I know it's not isolated to the state of Florida, the nation. July 4th weekend, I was incensed to see 423 black men, kids, killed by black men. And I'm sure you guys saw the same numbers. I didn't see one official speak out about it. And I've waited on news, I waited to see somebody say, hey, enough is enough. Now, I say this because the 423 across the nation that's killed, some of those hit right here in the state of Florida, Palm Beach County, Broward, and Dade County, and I still don't see anybody speaking out against it. Give this information to law enforcement so we can start locking these people up. This is also my anger when I speak to the state attorney's office. I speak directly to our state attorney and his assistant state attorneys about we got to lock them up. We need help. And we can't, as the chairperson said, law enforcement is never going to do this by ourselves. And by not doing it by ourselves, we're going to continue to invite other law enforcement agencies in this city so we can wipe out the crime that we see that's plaguing our neighborhoods. It's got to stop.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I would like to address Councilman McCoy asked, we have agencies that's coming here without body-worn cameras?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, say again?
We have agencies that's coming into our city
That's correct.
that don't have body-worn cameras?
That's correct. ATF doesn't carry body-worn camera, nor does Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
So is one of our officers with them that wears
We
body-worn
work
cameras?
out there with them, but we don't have to be with them when they're doing their job. And they are county sworn law enforcement officers certified in the state of Florida, and legally, technically, they have a right to be here. And what I'm asking for, just a little bit of understanding. We did this job for many years before we even had body-worn cameras. So it doesn't mean that we can't continue to do this job until they figure it out.
And Chief, I'm not debating that, but 2019, I think we put money towards body-worn cameras because we wanted transparency here in our city. And so if that transparency is not going to be done by other agencies, then I have a problem with that also, because we have issues right now with body cameras that we're having. So to suggest that we're going to bring agencies in without it, it's going to create another problem. And I don't know if I agree with that.
Second.
Okay, very good.
Madam Chair.
Well,
So-
Chief, so, can I, Madam
Go
Chair?
ahead, go ahead.
So, Chief, not to try to make this about anything controversial or political, but I think you understand our sentiments, and it really, nothing intended, but we are the first responders, because folks call 911 for assistance, but when there's a problem, they call the members of the board that's elected that they know that live down the street. And I certainly would, like for you to take the opportunity to brainstorm and figure out how we can address some of these concerns as far as, what happens when these agencies come into our neighborhood, so that it's not, it's not, it doesn't get out of hand, because, we've seen a couple instances that have occurred in the past, and thank God we had body cameras, because it protects and sometimes it provides for, preserves the integrity of what actually happened or what occurred. So I want to allow you the opportunity to look further into this, so, and you understand, at least from my perspective, why I'm bringing that.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. We appreciate all of your hard work.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
we've had two of the 18 departments present so far, and it's been over an hour and 15 minutes. Could we possibly break this list up into two and take another night and get through maybe the first 9 tonight and see if we can do the remaining 9? If we did it and they each took the same time, we'd be here till 2 a.m.
It's the pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, I want to try to get through it, but maybe if we're succinct with our question or our comment, then we can move a little bit faster. I mean, I watched the time too. Yeah, we're taking about 30 minutes on each one. So, and if that's the case, I mean, it's up to the board to say we want to stay another night. So I'm open to either way, but I do believe we can probably get through a lot of this if we just kind of condense what we want to say. And then that way we can continue to move forward.
Board members? Ms. McCoy? Mr. Lawson?
I would like to, I don't want to hamper anyone's ability, because members, this is the only time of the year that we get to highlight or understand what our departments do. And quite frankly, I know I haven't been in many of them since we've been into COVID, except for the police station, but I was on the good side when I went. But, if it has to carry on, I mean, I don't have a problem, but I just don't want to hamper anyone's ability. And I certainly understand in the essence of time that we want to, kind of expeditiously, go through these, so. But it doesn't matter to me either way.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, I think if we can
I would
just go
agree.
through it, and if we have questions, just see where we get by 9 or 10 o'clock, and then we can make a decision then.
We are at 9. Very good.
Madam Chair, did you advertise it from 6 to 10? So we have to stop at 10?
I am checking right now.
I think it said 6 to 10.
Yeah, I think it was 6 to 10.
It's from 6 to 10.
So we have to stop at 10 anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Madam Chair and members of the board, staff from the Utility District and the interim Executive Director of the Utility District, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, and her team will make the presentation concerning the utility operations.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jacobs and your team. He said, go ahead.
I think,
No.
Hello?
All right, very good.
So, good afternoon, Chairperson Lanier, other council persons in your respective places, Mayor Felder, City Manager Evans, City Attorney Nguyen. For the record, I'm Deirdre Jacobs, the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach and the Interim Director of the Utility Special District. We're here this evening representing the Utility Special District, and we're pleased to be here. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to present our accomplishments and highlights for the fiscal year 2021, as well as our proposed goals for fiscal year 2022. With that said, we are taking this opportunity to go through the 2 slides that are before you and to briefly share with you the descriptions of each of those particular items. As you all are well aware that our most critical and significant purpose is to deliver safe potable water to our residents, as well as the provision of sanitary sewer services. Just as the police and the fire department, I'd like to also share with you the value of the employees over at the utility district. And I think it is safe to say that the utility district really is the most important department in the city, because the services that we provide, in particular the drinking water, deals with life. Of all of the different accomplishments that we've listed, what we'll do is go through each of them, and there are 4 of us here this evening, and we'll take turns going through the different items, because all of us have different specialties or have worked on each of these items in particular more intimately than another one of us may have. So we'll start with our highlights and accomplishments and go through each of the goals. The first one deals with a prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy, wherein we sincerely value and respect the water conservation and all that it does and bring forth in terms of making our city important and significant with regards to sharing and educating our residents on the importance of water conservation and the value that it brings. And Dr. Williams will apprise you of activities in that particular area.
Good evening, Chair Lanier, Pro Tem, and Mayor, City Manager, and members of the board. So when it comes to water conservation, the water conservation happens on both sides. It happens on the operational side as well as the residential side. On the operational side, we have to stick with focusing on water conservation in terms of not wasting water. That comes in the manner of flushing sometimes. What we've done in the utility district is we've purchased multiple automatic hydrant flushers, and what they do is they flush the hydrants overnight. We do that in periods where it won't flood the communities so that residents won't complain. This will assist with a lot of our compliance matters, such as chlorine residuals. This will help with, in terms of stopping from going out and opening up hydrants in the middle of the daytime. You'll find these a lot on like dead ends or in areas where we have problematic chlorine residuals. When it comes to the residential side, we are going to touch base more on this in the 2022 part of it, because we do want to at least start to reach out to the community.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but chlorine residuals, what is that?
Chlorine residuals. Chlorine residuals, it's a number that tells you how much chlorine is inside the water. So the EPA regulates that. They have it at 4 parts per million, and we typically are not allowed to exceed that except for certain periods of the year where we do like a chlorine burn. So the federal government requires that we have a minimum and a maximum, and we have to keep it within a certain range. So every month we go out, we collect samples, we pick up the chlorine residuals, and in areas where we've seen the trend of the residuals not meeting the regulations, we tend to put hydrant flushers in those areas. And what that does is it opens up the hydrant, it brings in the freshest water that the water plant is producing, and it's allowing that fresh water to now be in an area to pretty much reflect what the actual chlorine is, because what we're producing at the plant meets all of the federal regulations. We want to make sure that everything we produce at the water plant is also reflected to what the residents receive.
The second item under this particular goal deals with a grant that we received from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, DEO, wherein the city received $1.9 million. I think it's the first grant, actually, that we were ever awarded in terms of it being a competitive grant. And the monies will go toward the aerial force mains being placed underwater. Right now, they're above water. The design and construction of the force mains will allow for us to be able to put them underground. With regards to great neighborhoods, We've worked diligently to come up with ways where we can aesthetically improve certain USD properties. In particular, our lift stations. Just recently, we did work over at the lift station number 10 over on Singer Island. There was already some landscaping that was there, but we went ahead and added additional landscaping.
Ms. Jacobs, did you guys, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you guys paint those tall, the tall, water things?
No, those are new,
Oh, they're new.
yes.
Okay.
But thank you for the question.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we're also, there are 3 more lift stations that there are plans to come up with landscaping and beautification activities. There are fencing that will be done around lift station 1A, that's the one near Wells. Also lift station number 2 near Avenue O, fencing will be put in place there as well. And then lift station 15, we're going to extend the fence around a driveway area. So once we're done with those, we'll go ahead and start on another group of lift stations. As well as that, we're about to spend about $20,000 to do beautification efforts right over at the Utility Special District in terms of landscaping, flowers. There will be vines along the fence that's west of the plant, as well as the fence that is east of the plants. We'll be moving I think there are 3 palm trees that are over in the City Hall property that will be moved over to the Utility District property as well. As far as continued repair and upgrade infrastructure to lift stations and water mains, Engineer John Armstrong will speak to that.
Good evening. We try and spend our customers' money wisely, and to be part of great neighborhoods, we don't want to disrupt the roads and tear up the roads more than once, so we try to take up the opportunity when a roadway project is going to be done that we upgrade the utilities. So this last year, when the Silver Beach Road project, the county road they were going to upgrade their road, we put in a water main. Also, Avenue M in Monroe Heights, we put in a new water main and lined the sewer line. And also in Monroe Heights, 26 Court, when the roadway project was done, we put in a new water main and a sewer line. Lift station number 41, the Woodbine was rehabilitated.
Mr. Armstrong, can you speak up a little bit?
No, sorry.
Yeah, you can move it.
We upgrade, lift station 41 in Woodbine broke down, so we did some major rehabilitation to that. Now, one project that wasn't planned where the roads were done was East Industrial Way and Central Industrial Drive in an industrial area where a lot of industrial users have high strength waste and acidic, so the useful life of the piping didn't last as long. So we replaced the force main and the gravity sewers along those 2 roads.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The third bullet deals with the overhaul of our cross-connection control program. It is our intent to bring it back before the board during the month of August. And at this particular time, Dr. Williams has been appointed as the project manager for our cross-connection program. He works with 2 other staff people that are actually restructuring the program, and he can make you aware of all of the changes that are taking place with that program.
Good evening again. So when it comes to the cross-connection control program, one of the things that I do want to point out is that when we have a program, it has to comply with what the state regulations state that we have to have. I know that a lot of the things that the ordinance that was brought before the board, it did pretty much structure itself to focus on what the state requires. I know one of the issues, and I spoke with Mayor Felder, is that the public is not as aware. And I know that one of the things we're going to do, I personally am going to make it my duty to educate the public when it comes to cross connections. I will take this time to at least educate you, board members, to let you know about cross connections, because cross connections are very important. Many of us know about the situation that took place over in Delray where their reclaimed water crossed into their potable water system, and many members of the community got sick. I can let you know right now that as the guys that I have on my team are going out and surveying the city to take a look at the backflow devices that are supposed to prevent cross connections, they're making sure that all of them are inspected, making sure that they're repaired, and they're making sure that everyone has the proper one in place. Just the other day, and when I say the other day, I mean within the last 48 hours, let me back up. The city has smart meters, and one thing that the smart meters tell customer service and tells the utility is whenever there is a backflow. And what that means is that water is actually registering. Water is supposed to go into the customer's home, never back into the utility system. What the smart meters do is they let us know when water is registering backwards. And what that means is that that water could be now entering back into our system, or it's attempting to. So we get alerts from customer service that tells us that these backflows are happening, and at that point we investigate. It sometimes can happen from a main break because of a pressure change, but in this particular instance, when we got an alert the other day, I called up the guys that we have on our team, told them to take a look at it. We found that a resident right here in Riviera Beach had a neighbor whose water service was disconnected. So what the neighbor did, who had the registered meter, he connected a system to where his water hose connection on the outside of his house was connecting to his neighbor's house. And what happened was that neighbor who did not have water service was able to pull water illegally into his home. Whenever that neighbor who did not have water turned off his spigot, it now sends that water that he's not using back into his neighbor's home. And what happens is that water now tries to enter back into the system. That is a cross connection. This is why we are now pushing even harder than ever to get this program passed. And this is why we're going to work to inform the public of what cross connections are. Because if some of this water enter into our system, it could possibly contaminate the water supply. This is why we're going to implement the devices that we have to put in place, and why we're going to implement why many businesses and some residential homes have to have this in place. And we'll focus more on this as we begin to implement it more. Thank you.
Madam Chair, so I certainly want to be.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I certainly want to be involved because this regulation, if I understand, is not something new. But similar to how the city failed this time last year to notify residents of their increase in their water bills, we can't just flush things down folks' throat and just say this is what has to happen. You know, I would love to know exactly what that means as far as a public education campaign. But I just told the police department, I am a first responder. When I got someone that comes to me and says, and I even got the same letter and I shared it with USD administration, I need to certify my backflow prevention device annually. Well, I can understand for my business, but then when I got a resident who has a single family home that has his backflow prevention device, and then there's a name and a telephone number on the actual letter that has the USD letterhead, nobody can actually tell me. So I certainly, as a board member, was left completely unaware of what this was. And then when I used the internal channels, we've gotten nowhere. You guys are working on a cross-control connection manual, and we've seen this twice on 2 readings. And I thought in good faith that we were going to have more opportunity to have a dialogue on it. But there are a number of things. I want to make sure that safety is number one, but I don't want that to come at the end of compliance being that we're going to enjoin somebody in a lawsuit. I think it's much easier to catch flies with honey than with vinegar. But when you put those kind of things inside of a regulation and you give no kind of public notice, then of course I don't want to agree with it. And we do a poor job of informing the residents until we've had folks that come in and outcry about the boil water notices that they weren't getting timely, then that's when we just started to step up the efforts in public information campaigning. So I would certainly like to know what that is, and I want to know in the preliminary stages. That way we can communicate it, because I mean, even in the meeting, emails come through, text messages come through. Folks was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. So please don't do this in a vacuum. I mean, we're the board for a reason, because if those kind of changes affect the people that we know that work within our community, that live within our community, I certainly want to be a part of the conversation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just reply?
Yes, please go ahead.
So, Councilmember Court, what I can say is that the document that you're referring to, our cross-connection control manual, first thing I do have to point out is that that is a working document. What that means is that that document can change because sometimes regulations change. We don't want to have to always come back before the board to pretty much mandate a new thing. You know, we just want to pretty much let that be a working document so that those within can know how to handle situations. The ordinance is the law that will regulate this. Now, I do have to stress that this is already a law in the state of Florida, whether we get on board or not, okay? And if we don't get on board, we as a city can face penalties, okay? Especially if the water supply becomes contaminated. So all we're doing is trying to comply. We will make sure that you and the rest of the board members are informed, sir, because we do need your input. However, in the meantime, we do have to do our part to make sure that everyone has safe water.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up under operational excellence, it lists an RFQ that was advertised for the construction of a new water treatment facility. RFQ went out June 11th, and it is expected for the responses to be returned on July the 20th. Continued educational and certification trainings. These involve CEU opportunities. Some of our staff just went to the University of Florida for different types of certifications as well. Our water plant operators, they have to get certified on a regular basis. And not only that, the gentlemen that work in distribution and collection as well, they're required to have certain licenses. So we do have, as a part of Dr. Williams's job up under compliance, we do have a process in place where those certifications and licenses are checked on an annual basis, and they're required to be up to date. Compliance standards and regulatory agencies being formalized. Dr. Williams, what he does as well, I saw it twice. It's listed in two different areas: operational excellence as well as government stewardship and accountability. As a part of his job, his responsibilities are to make sure that any regulatory agency that we're required to abide by, that we do so in a proper fashion. Enhanced safety standards for employees and the public, such as monthly safety meetings with the fire department and risk management, as well on a daily basis, our distribution staff and collection staff, as well as our water plant staff. It's my understanding that they meet every morning and they discuss safety protocols. Major construction underway at the existing water plant for a total of $12.7 million. I believe our water plant superintendent, Mr. Pinckney, can apprise you of those different activities that are going on as we speak.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor, everyone in their respective places. We are pretty busy over there.
Pull the mic just a little bit closer to you.
Good evening,
Yes.
everyone. Madam Chair, we're pretty busy over at the water plant right now. A lot of work going on. One of the main things are we having our filters repaired. The filters is the last stage of treatment. That is the last step in water treatment. That process is being taken care of right now. We're in the process of working on getting filter number 12 back online. We're going to move to number 9 next week. Once we get these filters back to normal operations and filtering the water the correct way they're supposed to filter, we're going to get much better results to our customers. We had a few incidents with a filter. What happens to these filters over time, they lose their capability of filtering the water the way it's supposed to be filtered. It's just like any other filter. Any filter at your home, on your pool, those filters have to be replaced. We're also putting in new chemical feed systems. Quite a few dollars being spent here. We can see $12.7 million, a lot of money. But the plant was designed in the late 50s, early 60s. We looking to do something different. And as Ms. Jacobs was saying, the educational part, we looking to build a new water plant. We looking forward to that. Thanks to the commission and the city manager, everyone in their respective places, commissioners. I want everyone to know that we really appreciate that, because this plant is wreaking havoc on us, but we are working with what we have to continue to make this water the best we can for the customers and the people of the city of Riviera Beach. The processed chemicals are being processed, so we're looking forward to, once all of these chemicals are online, that we can treat the water the way it need to be treated.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. With regards to the third goal, government stewardship and accountability, the first one deals with the consent order wherein USD a consent order was placed on us back in 2016, and it's due to expire in September of this year. So we're working diligently to comply with all of the items that are listed there. And Dr. Williams is in charge of that particular initiative as well.
So when it comes to the consent order, one thing I can say is that a lot of the items that have been assigned to us from the Department of Health have been met. For example, we were told to sample 42 sites when we first got it, it being a consent order. We're down to 2. One of the things that they said was that we can request reduced monitoring if we can show that we're compliant, which we have been doing. We've been showing compliance, so we've been able to reduce a lot of what was expected of us. There are some activities that we are still doing. We have ongoing, such as flushing. We do have some sample points in the distribution system that require regular monitoring for chlorine because we have to constantly check those areas. And then, of course, there are some things being rehabilitated or upgraded with the water treatment plant or out in our distribution system that was required as part of the consent order. But a lot of it we have completed, and I can tell you we're in a much better place now than we were when we first got issued that consent order.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Did I understand you to say you went from 42 sampling sites down to 2 sampling sites?
Yes, sir. So when the consent order was given to us, the Department of Health required us to sample 42 points within our distribution system based on a sampling plan. Based on how we've been performing, we've been able to reduce the 42 sites down to 2. So now we're sampling 2 sites every day down from the 42 points.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So with regards to purchasing software systems to conduct inventory control for parts, tools, meters, and other assets, that deals with our property management division, where it has purchased particular software to help us to keep track of our assets. Completed accurate and timely reports to regulatory agencies such as our cross-connection reports to the Florida Department of Health and the Department of Environmental Protection, as well as our risk resilience and assessment certification to the United States EPA. Community engagement and empowerment. The first one up under that particular goal reads, conducted numerous workshops and meetings to inform the community of the state of the utility operations and services. We've had over 10 sessions to include town hall meetings, board and council meetings, as well as workshops and homeowners association meetings. The last one reads, design and purchase portable signage to inform the affected communities of boil water advisory notifications. Those haven't been put out yet. I think we have about 10 that we purchased, but whenever we put out a boil water notice, what we did is we designed a sign that we would also put out. It's here, we bought one for you so that you'll be able to see what it is. There hasn't been one put out yet, so this will be the first time they will actually reveal to the community. So you'll see these that'll come out in the various neighborhoods whenever boil water notices are issued. So if you live in a community, as soon as you go into the interests of your community, you would be well aware, or you could take note of the boil water notices that have been shared throughout that particular community.
Ms. Jacobs, that is a very good idea.
Thank you. It looks nice as well, and it's double-sided. So, yes, it does. Yeah. So. Okay, so if you go on to the second slide, fiscal year 2022 goals, starting with the first, prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy. The first bullet deals with the design and construction of the new water treatment plant. As I mentioned, the RFQ went out on the 11th of June. We expect it to be back and receive proposals on the 20th. It's our intent for you, the board, to make a selection in August and for a contract to be signed in September. To continue to produce safe, potable water. If you want to speak to that, Dr. Williams and Mr. Pinckney.
We are at the water treatment plant, even though we are on the restraints of old, outdated equipment, we are making use the best we can with what we have. We're in the process of continuing to make changes to make the water safer, to continue to look out for the color, the turbidity. We're enhancing the operation, different methods because of the way the equipment are. Some of the equipment was very old and outdated. We would have to continue to go up and shake it for it to continue to feed the chemicals. But we resolving those problems as they come. So the main thing is we got rid of our very dangerous gases, chlorine. We had that on site. That is off site. That was a big one for us. We moved that off site. And now we have what we call sodium hypochlorite. It's bleach. And what happens is it's just as infected as gaseous chlorine. But what happened is we just have to use a little bit more because it's not 100%. It comes in at 12%. So we have to continue to add a little bit more to keep our disinfection up. But the most important thing, when we set out for our labs and tests, they always come back passing. So that's the most important thing. We set out our lab work, they come back, they pass. And a lot of people, I like to use the illustration of, and I'll be finished. You could take a glass of water with a little cloudiness to it, and you could take a clear glass of water with arsenic in it. Most people are going to take that clear glass of water when it's not safe to drink until a little bit of cloudy water. I just like to use that illustration for people because some people, they see a little cloudy water. I just like to use that illustration. But this water over here is clear, and it's not good to drink.
But we have neither of those in our city, so let's
No, we do
go ahead
not.
and
So-
make sure that that's clear.
You're absolutely correct. And for all of you, I made sure that you had a copy of our annual water quality report that we produced over at the USD. And this was actually released to the public, so it is available online for the public to view. It is on our website. I also have made sure that it was placed in many locations where the public can enter, such as here at the marina. I placed it at City Hall. I placed it up at Development Services. In many different locations, because I want to make sure that the public understands that the water is safe, and we have to report this. And one of the things that we're going to make sure that we do as part of our great neighborhoods is that we're going to ensure that the public is aware of the safety of the water, and we're going to make sure we be as transparent as possible by producing our water quality reports every year, but we want them to know about it month by month. So we're going to make sure that our reports are posted on a monthly basis if we have to, put them on the website, and they can see it for themselves so that they can see that the water is okay.
The third bullet reads to continue to apply for federal and state grants. We believe not only the $1.9 million that we just received, that's something that we got that we weren't used to getting, but we are also in the process of getting additional monies. We believe that we're about to get additional grants, CDBG grants for 6 generators. So it is our intent to not stop there and to do something that we haven't done in the past, which is progressively go outside of our own coffers and look for monies elsewhere. Up under great neighborhoods, there's a SCADA system that we're upgrading over at the district, and Melvin Pinckney will speak to that and explain that system to you.
The SCADA system is a system that we use to run our repump stations. Like here at Avenue C, if the operator need more pressure in this area, that system turns the pumps on, turns the pumps off open the valves, fill the tank at certain times. And that's what our SCADA, we call it a SCADA, trihedral system. It's just an automated system that helps the operator do his job from a remote location. So that system is in great dire need of upgrading. It's in the process of being looked at. So I'd just like to thank everyone for working with us on this, because this is a very important situation when we cannot open up a tank or turn on a pump for the fire department, say we need more pressure in this area, and my SCADA system won't let me do my job. So it's very important that this system get upgraded as well.
Certainly. Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I want to kind of uniquely ask that we kind of, when you say remote, that takes me back to the city of Oldsmar, and I think we probably heard enough, in my opinion, on remote access of those systems, because that inherently has some vulnerabilities in it. So I would ask that if we cannot talk about that part of it.
Okay, very good. Do you guys have any other, are you finished with the presentation? Okay, go ahead.
May I add something to that? I'm not sure about the remote part. We have two SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition systems. One's for the water plant, and the other one's for the remote part, water and sewer. But they're two different systems, and they're different softwares. The remote part is a DFS system. One of the things what we're doing is, you just approved last month to upgrade some electrical control panels on the system. So we instead of having two systems, we want to have one and try and transition to the new water treatment plant to have one that does a lot better things. So makes it easier for operations and tells them more things. And so we're going to go with a software BT SCADA system that talks with the existing system and to be able to work with the new water treatment plant. And at the existing water treatment plant, it's being upgraded. Right now, it's like on Windows XP software, which is no longer supported by Microsoft for a long time. And right now, it just controls mostly like pumps, and it doesn't control any of the chemicals. So this new system, this current upgrade, is to upgrade so they can control different chemicals at the water treatment plant, like the sodium hypochlorite and the ammonia for the disinfection system, and other controls with the lime system. And we're doing this now, so it makes it easier for them, and it also going with something that's compatible to make an easy transition to the new water treatment plant.
Thank you.
Sorry if I talked about remote stuff too much.
Ms. Jacobs, if you can, could you have each of your team members introduce themselves again?
Well, you want to start with Dr.
Yeah,
Williams?
you start with.
So good evening, I'm Dr. Anthony Williams. I'm the compliance officer.
Melvin Pinckney, superintendent of the water plant.
John Armstrong, engineer.
Thank you.
So continuing with the great neighborhoods, the next thing we have is to develop a hurricane plan that mitigates vulnerabilities and risks. What this is going to help the USD become more prepared in the event of a storm. And when I say more prepared in the event of a storm, it's so that we're not like scrambling around like chicken without heads. We want to make sure that we're prepared. We want to make sure that in the event of a storm, we have all of the generators that we need to provide power to our lift stations and to our drinking water wells. We want to make sure that the water treatment plant doesn't ever fail or go down. We want to make sure that, you know, anything that can be considered an object that can fly, you know, gets taken away. We want to make sure that if trees need to be trimmed, we take care of these things. So we want to have a plan in place. So that's something that we're going to work towards. The next thing on Great Neighborhoods is to create opportunities to share information with residents to inform of the importance of our backflow prevention measures. I briefly touched on that as part of our 2021, but we want to continue to pursue that in 2022 with your approval. As we switch over now into government stewardship and accountability, we're going to continue to address and reduce the outstanding consent order items. As we stated before, the consent order is set to expire this year in September, so we will do our due diligence to make sure that we continue to address whatever we can to complete that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I apologize. I should have asked this back in the Prosperous Resilient section. When you say continue to apply for federal and state grant funds, how are we ensuring that we get every dollar of federal money that's now available for infrastructure? Is there somebody targeted just with going after those grant funds?
I can't say that there's somebody that's specifically targeted to go after those particular grant funds. Whenever they are brought to our attention, of course, we read through them and see if there's something that we can apply for, and we do have a grant writer that has assisted us in the past.
Okay, because it's...
We have lobbyists as well. Every so often, they'll send us information that applies to grant opportunities that are available.
Could we get a report from them specific to the federal money that's available for infrastructure now and how we're going to approach getting it? That would be an interesting and important thing for us to know. How are we going to ensure that we get our share of the federal dollars that are set aside for projects that we have that we could use federal money for?
Sure. Usually if monies, Dr. Botel, they're set aside for us, we would get them anyway. If you're speaking about competitive dollars, are those the...
I don't know if the monies, the new federal monies are competitive. I'm always thinking everything's competitive with the feds, but let's find out and be sure we're not leaving anything on the table.
Sure.
Very good. Mr. Evans?
Yes, Madam Chair. We are continuing to monitor what's happening in Washington, D.C. There looks like there's some reconciliation between both the House and the Senate to come to numbers with respect to infrastructure, and there's the potential for $3.5 trillion, but the number has moved and swayed. So we're continuously monitoring that. Once that makes it to the point where the president gets to sign the bill, then we're going to do an aggressive full court press as it relates to speaking to the agencies that would be administering the programs. We don't know if there's a possibility to see some type of allocation similar to what we've received with the CARES money, which I doubt that's going to happen, because that's probably once in a lifetime we'll see a direct appropriation to government entities. But nonetheless, we are continuously keeping our fingers on the pulse on that, and we'll go after that as aggressively as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, if I wanted to go back to great neighborhoods, the last bullet, it reads to create opportunities to share information with residents, to inform them of the importance of backflow prevention measures. Mr. McCoy was out of the room when Dr. Williams spoke to that, but I just wanted to bring it back to your attention that it is one of our goals because we're well aware of the importance of it. It is specifically listed that we will utilize the opportunity to share backflow information with residents, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The last bullet up under government stewardship and accountability reads an opportunity for us to create situations wherein our staff is able to conduct business using best practices. This is our intent, is to send our staff to many different trainings and seminars as the resources will allow us, so that they're apprised of any new development that takes place dealing with utility services. If we move on to operational excellence, the first two we've dealt with already. The third one reads recruit and hire credentialed, skilled, and trained personnel to manage utility operations and services. Right now, we are fully hired, I believe, with the exception of maybe a couple of positions. We just recently hired 2 instrumentation technicians, 2 water plant operators, and 2 water sewer maintenance mechanics. And of course, the executive director position is still open. The fourth bullet reads to continue implementation of the cross-connection control program through surveying of private backflow devices, as well as testing and repairing of our own city-owned devices. The next bullet speaks of the infrastructure improvements, and Mr. Armstrong will apprise you of those.
Good evening again, John Armstrong. One of the areas that we're looking at is we're evaluating, of the 52 lift stations, 5 are in good condition, 47 are not. They're in board a fair condition. And so we're just evaluating those. They're not on the list here, but one of the things is we need to upgrade the lift stations for safety. The first item on the list, we talked to the the electrician and the mechanics that what do they want to improve? What do they see as needed immediate improvements to be safe? And so you just approved last month 10 electrical control panels are leaking. 16 they identified need immediate repair. So unfortunately, that's going to be on the next fiscal year because it takes over 2 months. There's a delay to just have these control panels delivered, so that'll bring us to October. So just like two of the prior departments that talked, the men and women, they have, their jobs are, not really safe, unsafe jobs. And so, they have the guys in the utility district that work on these lift stations have very unsafe jobs. And so they're only men, there's no women. It's not really a glamorous job. You're not going to see them on a movie and like the other two departments. But so I remember back in the 1980s, I met two gentlemen, and back when I was an engineering consultant, and 2 days later, two days later they died. They drowned in a lift station. So, sorry. So we're going to need to spend quite a bit of money upgrading these lift stations. Also, in addition to just to maintain the level of service, so keep the sewage from flowing down the streets and flowing into the canals that maybe people want to fish, and then flowing into surface waters where people are going to swim and recreation. So let's see. So lift station 19 is to be rehabilitated soon. It's one of the older lift stations where it has a dry pit where the mechanical and electrical components are below ground, about 15 feet below ground, and have to go down into that. And so it's currently in bypass mode. Those pumps aren't working, and other components aren't working. That lift station, you hear 19, but that's on Garden Road, about midway between Blue Heron and MLK. Lift station number 47, that's a master lift station that had some spills, and that is to be rehabilitated. Have a repump station to also take care of the odors. Palm Beach Shores water main project is to start soon. Garden Road water main, force main project's ongoing. It should be completed along with the county road project. And the M Canal and the C-17 Canal aerial force main crossings, that's the one Ms. Jacobs mentioned. We got received a $1.9 million grant. And then the intercoastal water main and force main projects to complete the design and initiate construction. And then we have a bunch of, we haven't established them, but we'll be starting to do a bunch of sanitary sewer lining projects next fiscal year. Thank you.
The last goal is community engagement and empowerment. The first bullet reads, to continue the conduct of sharing information with the community through in-person sessions such as workshops and homeowners association meetings. We absolutely love taking advantage of any opportunity to share information about the utility district and respond to questions. We've done it in the past without hesitation, and anytime there is an opportunity in the future to do so, it is our intent to take advantage of it. The last bullet deals with enhanced communications, and Dr. Williams is going to speak to that one.
So finally, with the enhanced communications, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look to enhance what we do with the public and how we do it with the public. We're going to utilize the city's webpage. We're going to utilize the USD's webpage. We're going to, at least as far as the USD webpage, we're going to do as much as we can to be as transparent as we can by producing as much information as possible. We're going to utilize the city's newsletter to give out as much information as we can. And then we're going to also, like we said, we have the sign here, and we're going to utilize systems such as the boil water notice sign. The water quality report has a lot of good information in it. We put it inside of that for a reason. We want the residents to become as informed as possible. But on top of all of that, everyone in the USD is always available, you know, whenever they need to have a question answered. We're always here to answer anything. I give out my business card in a heartbeat, and I tell, you know, any customer I'm here to answer any questions they need. I have my cell phone number on there as well as my direct line. So any of us are available. We will do what we can to make sure that we continue to promote the USD and just enhance communication in any way possible.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you again, Council, Mayor, Mr. Evans, and Mrs. Nguyen. When it comes to us bringing before you the numbers for our department, we would just ask, even if the other departments are asked to cut their figures or need to cut their figures, that you please allow us an opportunity to present to you our numbers, even if they're over and above any cuts that may be asked of us, because we really need all of the resources that we can have in order to continue and actually improve our service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the utility staff?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs, thank you for the presentation, for the effort that you've been doing at the Water Department. One of my biggest concerns and thoughts is going to be that enhanced communication. We have to keep our residents abreast. We know from the Department Utility District, from this dais, our staff, our priority number 1, 2, and 3 is a new plant. But we have to make sure that our residents are prepared with the process, the hurdles, and the steps it's going to take. I absolutely love this quality report that you guys provided. Getting it into the residents' hands. Just leaving it at City Hall and different facilities is not going to be sufficient. So let's put a plan in place of how we can get this to them so they can see the good work that you're doing and the quality of water that we currently have. Step 2 is going to be also to focus on making sure that there is never any drop-off when it comes to the boil water notices. Things happen, but we have to make sure residents are aware and prepared for it so that we don't get the phone calls first. You guys should be calling us so that we can call them. So communication is going to be priority because we know that you guys are working aggressively with the facilities, and you know our priority is to get that new plan up within 36 months. So again, thank you guys. This is a great report, a great first steps, and we look forward to seeing the budget. Thank you so much.
I'd like to say something else. Many of you may not know, but the Utility Special District is a 24-hour service, not only for the water plant operators, but our distribution and collection staff get called out in the middle of the night at any given time as well. So thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you.
Staff, thank you.
Any other questions for the utility staff? I'd just like to say, Ms. Jacobs, you and your staff, an excellent presentation. I really appreciate the fact that when I first was elected to office, I just thought I'd turn my water on and that was about it. I never gave any of the intricacies of the water department a second thought. And being here these last 2.5 years, you guys have educated us about cross connections, about water mains, about, I didn't even know this canal was C7 canal, and I had no idea of any of these terms. And showing us, teaching us, and as my mother say, making it plain that we understand what it is that you're talking about, because I think that this department, other than IT, is the most technical department there is in the city. And to be able to explain that information to the public and to us so that we can understand what it is that you're saying and can visualize how all of this works for us to get clean water, we are really appreciative of the hard work that you do and how you make it plain to us. Because this information and the way the water plant works is a lot of science, it's a lot of chemistry, and we were just not aware of how it worked. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you can make that plain to us. So the work that you guys do is exemplary, and we really appreciate all of your hard work.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to just follow up to Councilman Lawson's request. I do want to make it clear to the board that we have distributed the water quality reports at least electronically. We do have an exemption that we were able to meet with the DEP just to reduce our footprint because of the paper. So one thing we did do was ensure that the link is printed on every customer's bill. So they do have access, at least on the bill with the link. There's two links. One link takes them directly to our website that has all of the water quality reports dating back to 2014, I believe. And then there is a second link that they can click on that will take them to this year's most current report.
Yeah, and putting that information in the newsletter that goes out is excellent as well.
And we also did put it in the library. I forgot that spot, sorry.
All right, very good.
Madam
Thank you
Chair,
so much. Yes.
Just one last word. I want to say, you know, when I was first elected, for a couple of years anyway, we never got the information at the level that we get now. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate how transparent you are and all the hard work you do. So thanks.
So I just want to give Mr. Evans kudos because he's a big supporter of ours, and he does assist us from a higher level.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I won't say too much at all because I think you all already know my comparison from being here when we were having very difficult times in trying to receive information, and then also not being transparent about the water quality and just trying to stay on top of it, particularly with those consent orders, because I know we had a lot, and I was here during that time. And so it's good to hear that we're almost at the end of fulfilling those, because there were many that were there that were not being acted on, nor were we being told about them. So I applaud you all for your transparency and just working as hard as you all are. I know a lot of times we have a lot of people sometimes in the community that may be misinformed, and I appreciate just trying to make sure that we could dispel a lot of the rumors or the misinformation that's put out there. Are we saying we're perfect? No, we're not. But we are working towards being transparent and giving quality water to our residents. So I appreciate all of the hard work that you all are doing.
Thank you so much again for your presentation and your hard work.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. And certainly, as stated by staff, any person that would like to have a presentation or have the discussion with staff with regards to the water quality and the plans that we have moving forward with the district, we will be willing to have that conversation any place, anytime, anywhere, to ensure that accurate information is being disseminated to the public. This is a service that touches all the residents every day, and it's essential to the health, safety, and welfare of our community. So we don't have the luxury of mixing words or portraying things that aren't accurate. So if there is a question, concern, or comment, we certainly will do everything in our power to make sure that the accurate information is provided. We may not like what the accurate information, but at the end of the day, it's the right information that the public has to be completely informed. And we'll also work on our examples as it relates to arsenic and water. That wasn't prepped with me prior to the presentation. But
no, but you know what, Mr. Evans,
it's a great point.
I want to say that you certainly are should be given kudos as well, because I remember when you first came back, you said that the water plant was going to be a main priority of yours, and you said that, you know what, we're going to give the public the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to just let them know everything what's going on so that they know where we stand and what we need to do to be able to get this water right. So kudos to you as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, the next group that will be making the presentation will be joining us virtually. Mr. Scott Evans and Anita Jenkins will be providing the fiscal year 2021 accomplishments for the CRA, and then the 2022 goals and objectives.
Mr. Evans, will Mr. Scott Evans be on the monitor? Can someone from, come and help us out in the, I know, but the monitor is not working up here in the front for us.
Madam Chair, if they're not ready, can we move on?
Is it, are they not ready?
I can move through this, and if they jump in, they can certainly jump in.
Okay.
So under prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy, we were able to move forward with the Emerging Micro Business Incubator in Smoothie Me Please. We successfully opened that particular facility in January, and everything that we have seen by the operator has been outstanding. They've done an excellent job in regards to marketing and promoting, and it is starting to get a lot of traction in the community. And every morning when I do pass by, I make it a point to look there, and there is persons that are visiting from all over Palm Beach County that are taking advantage of that. So we're certainly excited about that program. To provide commercial grants to several area businesses, that's something that we certainly want to do, especially with our facade grant programs. Those are things that this board has supported, and to help facilitate business growth and development. We have produced 2 business certifications programs that allow for persons to be prepared for the successful operation and ultimately a sustainable business model, and providing those wraparound services. We produced homeowner training modules for more than 75 residents interested in home ownership. We know that that's a major priority of the board on the CRA side, and as early as your last budget workshop, the board committed $1 million to looking to institute some of the programs that are successful in the CRA on the city side. So we look forward to seeing that materialize. The production and participation of job fairs. We've had the opportunity to co-host multiple job fairs from nonprofit to for-profit entities, and we're seeing the growth and the demand for that particular service, that a lot of other entities are looking at our location to host subsequent job fairs. So that's things that are continuing to move forward. We've pursued multiple redevelopment opportunities within the corridor, including property acquisitions. We have had multiple conversations with the development community. We have a bunch of different studies that this board has commissioned, from looking at our densities and intensities, parking, housing, and all those studies are going to assist you in making the public policy push as it relates to next fiscal year. The next topic is great neighborhoods, homeowner grants for 2 first-time home buyers, and so that continues to be a program that is we get a lot of interest and a lot of participation, but is ultimately how do we get people qualified and through the program, and then what the gap is related to funding. The 11th Street Townhome Project, we are moving forward, and we're in the final steps of a development agreement between the CRA and the CDC to help facilitate the 11th Street Townhome Project, which we're excited to come online. The Singer Island Garden Phase 1, that went well. The grand opening for that was June 20th, 2021, and we consistently are looking to improve our community garden program to also look at how we can provide produce to our community similar to that of our urban farm. Created an art gallery series that you see here at the marina, intended to showcase prominent artists in our community, as well as making sure that when visitors do visit the Marina Event Center, they leave having experienced something when they do come here. We've participated in neighborhood cleanups with over 140 volunteers, and that has been successful, and we continue to do that, and we've also done that on the city side. And then re-engaging residents in gardening programs, Sow and Grow. That is something that we hear from the community a lot about, and how much they appreciated that particular program. The implementation of the smart home programs, that's a program that actually has been a lot better than what we could have anticipated, and we have a waiting list for persons that are looking for that program on the city side, and I had a discussion with the chief, and we're looking to roll out something similar to that on the CRA, or on the city side. Is CRA staff there, or?
Yes, we're here.
All right, I'll turn over.
We're here. Okay.
All right, I'll turn over the next.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
No problem.
I'll just add a little bit to our prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy section. Of course, our 2600 Broadway project will, that's corner of Broadway and Blue Heron, and that project is set for.
Did we lose him?
And that also happened.
Mr. Evans?
All right, I'll jump back in.
Now we want to move fast, okay.
With regards to operational excellence, we were able to secure the award from FRA for Best Small City Annual Report. And funny part about that is I actually received a inquiry from the hometown that I grew up in, asking about what we did to win the award. So people are watching, so we're doing a great job with regards to the marketing and promotion on the CRA side. Cross-training staff on multiple roles in the organization. As a small, dynamic team, we know that everyone has to play a different role in the agency, and so we've looked at ways to career stretch and provide for opportunities to continue to cross-train staff. Looking for professional trainings and opportunities to create a career stretch. We're looking at ways to fuse the relationship between the city and the CRA and providing those professional training opportunities for persons to grow. The ambassador program was absolutely outstanding during our food distribution, our vaccinations, and our community cleanups. They have, anytime we've asked any assistance or help, they've been there to help us facilitate those copious amounts of activities that we did during the onset of the pandemic. With regards to government stewardship and accountability, we produced FAQs for the CRA website to show more transparency. We also were one of the first entities, the CRA, to put out information to Riviera Beach residents concerning COVID guidelines, as well as several PPP initiatives or what that program entailed, as well as sessions talking about financial literacy and what are some opportunities that were available to persons throughout the county during the onset of the pandemic, as well as the grant programs that were provided through the CRA during the pandemic. With regards to community engagement, neighborhood service days where we had 25 departments here in the Marina Event Center. It was an outstanding event, and we look to continue to move that forward in subsequent years. The Great American Cleanup and Earth Day, we've had folks that have participated. We collected about 1,200 pounds of trash and 400 pounds of recycled material. And then the CRA has continued to produce a monthly newsletter and daily social media posts. Our staff has done an outstanding job on that particular task. And then lastly is participation in several community-wide events, from Memorial Day, Observations, Veteran Day, Dedication, Willie Spence Watch Party, Poetry Festival, Juneteenth, MLK Celebration, and Kwanzaa activities. Our folks have been definitely very supportive and have helped the Parks and Recreation Department, and even in some cases led a lot of those events. So we're certainly proud of the work that staff has done in fiscal year 2021. Moving on to the goals and objectives for 2022. Are you guys there?
We're here.
All right, I'll turn over the goals and objectives for 2022 to the CRA staff.
Hopefully my mic's fixed as well.
We can hear you. Proceed.
Okay. This coming year, we're looking to create a new phase in our small business incubator project to amend our grant agreement with Tony Stubbs, and that's to help them get the needed financing for the Blue Lagoon project. The Blue Lagoon project site plan was approved by City Council, but due to increases in construction costs, that this program is required to get more. And so we're working on an amendment to their agreement that would help them to finance the project, and also to incorporate the next phase of our incubator program, which would lease 2 spaces in that building by the CRA, and then we could then sublease those spaces to some of our new business, either an existing business that wants to expand or a new business startup. And so that program would be offered in a procurement that would allow new business owners or existing business owners to put together their business plan and apply. And then ideally, once that building is built, we can have 2 new businesses that would move in as part of our incubator project. We're also looking to complete the development agreements for Marina Village Phase 2 and our 2600 Broadway project. And towards that end, we've engaged P3 Consultants, and we were looking to bring the review of that to the board, review and assessment of the 26. And then once they get the feedback from the board, then they will help us develop an ITN or an RFQ, which then would go out for redevelopment opportunities to developers. And then we'll also assist the board in making the final decision to select a project that meets the community goals for that site. And of course, the demolition of that site will occur at the end of the summer. The goal really is also to really transform Broadway into a thriving residential and retail office mixed-use area. And as a part of that, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council in the coming year will complete new zoning and development regulations that will be developed through public workshop. The first public workshop will be starting in September of this year, and that will be combined with work that they're currently doing on the CRA plan. And the CRA plan, of course, will also be updated in the coming year. So we have a lot of exciting things that are happening. Not only they're going to be moving forward, but the plans and the future for all the work the CRA will do over the next 10 years will get finalized in early 2022. The work that Treasure Coast will be doing specifically includes looking at the downtown zoning regulations towards incorporating more density, potentially increasing the heights in some areas, and creating some linked incentives to those new regulations that would really try and attract new development to the CRA and specifically the Broadway corridor. We're also working to promote leisure tourism to the Marina and the CRA district. And this includes working in partnership to continue our signature events, which Anita will discuss further. And also, we're looking at creating a food truck village where utilizing the Spanish Port site, which is already designated as a mobile vending area. And we'd be looking at trying to allow that opportunity for local business, local food trucks, to not only be stationed there on a regular basis, but also to do some events that could be held on a weekly or monthly basis, which would not only bring more tourism and residents to the area, but really create sort of like a food truck environment with lighting and tables to try and not only provide opportunity for our local mobile vendors, but also to attract more visitors to the district and Marina Village.
Good evening, Chairperson Lanier and other commissioners, Mayor, and Mr. Evans. Building upon the success that we've had with our business certification program in the last year, and knowing that all of our small business infrastructure in our city has been challenged by COVID impacts over the last year, we're looking for ways to enhance our support for our small businesses. And we're introducing our Business Spotlight program for businesses located in the CRA district to provide an opportunity for free marketing to the community. And this will include posting to social media. We are creating and building a business directory on our website, which will be digital. And we're creating a monthly Business Spotlight newsletter to highlight 4 businesses a month. And we've made special efforts, and we'll continue to do so, to reach out to small businesses in the CRA and within the city for that part, trying to attract, retain, and support our small businesses. As Mr. Evans mentioned, we're also partnering with other agencies to produce job fairs. Even though there is strains on employment in our community, we know that some employers are having a struggle to attract employees. And trying to match employees to employers will be one of our main goals in terms of having the opportunity for job fairs for people, for our residents in our community, because we want to provide that economic development support so that we are completing the cycle with businesses, residents, and our employers. We want to continue to develop a succession planning structure, employee development, and retraining initiatives to make sure that we are ready for our 2022 challenges as we move the agency forward. We will produce at least 2 business sense certification programs. And I just want to pause here and mention that we're in our 4th year of producing these certification programs, and they have been so successful that other local governments are modeling our program. Just recently, Florida Atlantic University Small Business Development Center and the SBA has launched a next step program to provide business loan packaging and also marketing assistance for businesses, business people who are entrepreneurially challenged, to help them to move forward. And I'm happy to say that in the first class, most of the participants have come directly from our Business Sense certification program. We will produce 3 homeownership training modules for more than 75 residents. And we're very happy to hear that the city will be committing some money on the city side, because we have residents that come from all over Riviera Beach who are quite interested in homeownership. And while we're providing the training, we have to make sure that we are also providing the supply to meet the demand. Moving on to great neighborhoods. We want to maintain our very stellar Marina Village facilities and park, and we want to seek opportunities to upgrade the surrounding grounds and area to protect the large investment that has been made in our Marina Village. We want to continue promoting and assisting with workforce housing initiatives to assist with financial resources to our first-time homebuyer class. And I know in previous meetings, we've discussed how the median price of housing in our county is approaching $450,000, and how we have a lack of homeowner-occupied units in our community, and how we have to try to bridge that gap. So we want to bring in additional resources, leverage resources to increase the number of owner-occupied housing units, and we're committing to do that for this year. We expect in the next fiscal year that our 11th Street Townhouse project will begin construction and sales. And we are bringing before you very shortly our development agreement for approval so that we can very swiftly continue to move that forward. We'll also continue our pre-development of Avenue E mixed-use project, which will be phase 2 within that block where our townhouse project is located.
For operational excellence, the clean and safe training for all ambassadors will continue in the new year. And they've been doing not only cross-training, but really increasing their skills. And in particular, all of the ambassadors were recently trained to be able to handle public events. And this is a training that's actually required for some large-scale events that we want to hold at Marina Village. And they also have been taking safety classes, and they'll continue to do that as we really are building a really high-quality ambassador workforce. The capital projects that we're going to go through in the coming year will all undergo quality control and value engineering before we issue the bid. And one of the new capital projects that we'll be starting this year is Avenue E. And one of our accomplishments from this year was to complete a total revitalization study for the Avenue E corridor. And we will begin by working in cooperation with the city and the utility district to implement, and which will start with engineering design and funding to begin the Avenue E redevelopment project. Specifically, our ability and the way that the revitalization plan was designed, we'll be able to begin a part of the roadway if we're not able to get all of the funding at this time. So we will be able to start that project this year, and hopefully through our continued budget discussions of capital projects, we'll be able to identify some funding for the Avenue E project, which the CRA has set aside $2 million for. Moving on to government stewardship. Let's see. We'll be looking to increase effectiveness and cost efficiencies in our operations. And we do this every year. And we don't always highlight what we've been able to accomplish. But this includes minor things from trying to save costs on office supplies, photocopies, but also with the opportunity that's going to come about by moving into City Hall in our close proximate location to both Development Services and the Finance Department. We think we'll be able to continue to identify ways that we can save money as we operate over at the new location. And of course, that immediately will reduce our overhead by moving into the City Hall. And we're going to work closely with the city's procurement department in the coming year so that they can assist us with all of our RFPs, which helps reduce a lot of the overhead and staff time that we have to spend on those projects, since our staff don't do as many RFPs and don't have as much expertise as the city's procurement department. We will also be procuring all goods and services using our best value approach, where we seek to identify the best way to purchase whatever we're purchasing, and that includes either getting 3 bids or identifying contracts through the state in which we can piggyback on to try and procure all of our goods and services in the lowest cost possible manner. We're going to continue our efforts to recruit and hire competent and experienced personnel, and monitor and follow up on the implementation of recommendations that come out of our audits. A new accountability effort we're going to make this year is to conduct semi-annual review of all of our grant programs. And this not only will help us continue to interface with our grant program recipients and try and help them, because some of their projects do occasionally get stalled from time to time, but also to identify the ones that get canceled, so that we can then reappropriate those dollars much more quickly and allow the board to offer new opportunities for grant dollars that have been committed to projects that, for one reason or another, the private developer or business owner has decided not to proceed with.
And just lastly, with our community engagement and empowerment, because connecting our residents and our businesses to resources is one of the most important things that we can do. We want to showcase Marina Village for residents and visitors to enjoy by creating inclusive holiday events to celebrate all holidays. And we've successfully produced several of these, and we're enhancing and expanding them to include the entire holiday season, including Hanukkah, Winter Wonderland. We'll be showcasing a Santa Dash, and you'll hear more about that during the budget discussions, and Kwanzaa, all included in our Winter Wonderland celebration. We want to promote and facilitate a satisfaction survey to all renters at the Marina Village Event Center, because good customer service is a hallmark of what we do, and we want to increase service and satisfaction. We will continue to produce monthly our CRA newsletters, and we are participating with the city in the production of the city's newsletters by providing complimentary information, as well as daily social media posts to promote our programs and services. And we have seen an uptick and subscribers and followers on our social media posts. And I think people are coming to enjoy the increased flow of information. We will maintain the public's access to information, inspiration, programs, and services via Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We were part of the special event procedures team, and we'll be implementing those new City of Riviera Beach special event processes so that we're transparent as one city as we move forward in all that we do. And we intend to participate in joint venture with Parks and Recreation and other departments on community events and activities like the Light Up the City, 4th of July, and the Police Night Out. So I'll stop there and see if you have questions or comments of Scott and myself or Mr. Evans that we might answer about any of our accomplishments and goals. But we're so happy to share them with you in the community, and quite proud of how we have been a resilient staff through the COVID impacts and through adjustments and challenges in our department. So thank you for your attention.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Anita, this one's for you. You and I participated in the Palm Beach County Housing Steering Committee meeting yesterday. It seems like a week ago, but I just looked at my notes and it was just yesterday. And one of the things they talked about was the Heirs Property Act. The Heirs Prosperity Act, I think they called it, which I didn't know anything about. And I'm wondering, now that I know about it, I'm thinking this might be something that the CRA might want to take on as an educational component so that our residents understand, you know, when you kind of live in a house that was owned by your grandfather and you just ended up living there, you don't always have the right paperwork that shows that it's your house. And that lets the door open for predatory investors to come in and try to take over your property. So I'm thinking that we might want to provide estate planning, you know, some kind of outreach to homeowners to help them move through the probate process so that the house is really in their name and not, you know, they won't be at risk of having somebody swoop in and take it. The other thing that they talked about yesterday was the need to give people advice on property tax exemptions, like the homestead exemption, that people who live in homes that were generational homes might not know that they can qualify for a homestead exemption or for exemption for veterans and the like. And I don't know that that's a program that we yet have at the CRA, but I think it's something that we ought to consider taking some time to look at. I think that was it on what they talked about yesterday. It was interesting to note that in Florida, the heirs property is valued at over $1.1 billion. That's the dollar value of homes that are lived in by people who've inherited them from grandparents and so on. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's something that maybe the CRA can take on. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the CRA staff?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, and Ms. Jenkins, thank you so much for your presentation. CRA, our biggest concern when we first got on this dais was making sure that our CRA was addressing slum and blight. And I know the pandemic hit, and we couldn't accomplish as much as we wanted to see, and we put it in the direction of staff. So moving forward, now that we're coming out of and transitioning out of this pandemic, I want us to really attack that. I wanted to get an update on the power lines and cable lines being buried. Do we have that in the budget? What's going on with that? If I could kind of get an understanding as to what's going on with the power lines on Broadway.
We have been, FPL did some work to the existing lines. They upgraded them, which changed the burial. It doesn't change the cost for us, but they have to go forward with their programs, which are statewide. So what we've done is FPL is working to update their plan, and they do have a draft new burial locations for us. And really, the key locations that we have to identify are the ones where all of the large transistor green boxes go. So they've updated where we need all of our easements for that. And so we're currently working on finalizing easements. The CRA budget for the project is $2.9 million, and that budget is broken up into costs that go to AT&T, because their lines are on their cables are on those same poles, and then to FPL, who would then bury their lines and install the new transformers. So that project has $2.9 million set aside for it, and that currently meets the budget. And our consultant is Chen Moore and Associates, and that will be coming back before the CRA board to talk about those final easements in either August or September. And we're also starting to work with the city to help them identify some areas where they may want to pursue this kind of burial in the future. And so the next step would be for the CRA board to approve the easements, and then immediately following would be the contract for FPL. And the current schedule has that contract for FPL could be approved in the coming year, first quarter. So that would be as early as October or possibly November.
Okay, so you're saying that FP&L changed the location of where the burial lines can go?
Yes, because they upgraded their system several years ago, and that change has required some of the easements to change. But I think we're down to only one last easement that we're trying to get. So we're fairly close to being able to execute that cost contract with FPL.
Okay, because I know that we passed a purchase of some land months ago to where we were obtaining all the easements so that we could do the burial land. So I'm assuming that the change happened within the last few months.
Yeah, when we purchased the property at the corner of Broadway and Blue Heron, we were able to get control of one of the most difficult areas, because the burial project extends from 11th Street to 27th Street. And that building is the north side of that property is right at where that project would terminate. So there's several boxes, easements, and underground control units that have to go in on that property, because that was originally one of our biggest concerns. So that did help us a lot, because we now control that site. And of course, all of the improvements would go into the easement, so it doesn't really affect our redevelopment ability, because we'll put the easements adjacent to the right-of-way. And then for the most part, we can landscape around them, or around the boxes, and especially over the ones that are underground.
So I want us to make sure that we make that and look at that as a priority, because we're looking at the intensities, densities down Broadway. We're looking at increasing some of the height, the development, and the growth of our downtown corridor, Broadway and Avenue E. So I think that we've been talking about that since for about 2 years now. That was one of the first items that we budgeted, and we said we were going to move forward. So it just seems like it's continued to get the can kicked down the road. I think we need to go ahead and be aggressive with trying to get this done and get this process where we can have these buried lines for our cable and for FP&L. And I remember you told us that FP&L has to give us the approval before we can get authority from Comcast and AT&T. So I want to make that a priority within this budget. It is a budgeted item, but it seems like with changes that it may change also the cost of the budget. So I want to make sure that we're prepared and that we're not changing our budget at that time. The additional 2 items, I saw that we have training for about 75 residents, where we're going to do home ownership training. I want this to actually convert into closings for residents, not just the training and certification. So making sure that we're addressing development of the properties, property beautification, and also making sure that we get some home ownership going, so that we can really get some residents and change the 15% owner occupied to a higher percentage. And we're going to look at that across the board. Lastly, the media coverage. We've been talking about telling our story. At every event, every ribbon cutting, and every discussion that we have in the CRA, I want to make sure that we have as much press as possible. They seem like we can have 10 news stations out whenever there's an issue or a problem or something that's negative in our community, but when we showcase the amazing things that our CRA is doing, we can barely have a news article or we barely have any press. So we need to have at least a press release for everything that's being done because you guys are doing some amazing work and we're going to continue to do that amazing work. But I want to make sure that we have a press release for everything that we're doing. And those are just some of my feedback. Oh, I'm sorry, last thing. Procurement of all goods using best value approach. I wanted to take a look with our consultant, Mr. Franklin Lee, because I am one for saving money and making sure that it's very cost effective. But we do have the lowest median income in Palm Beach County. And if we do not make sure that those dollars are being spent in the community, by residents for the community, we're not going to be able to address the lowest median income. So while we're taking a look at the lowest median approach for purchasing, I also want to make sure that our consultant is taking a look at it so that we can make sure the local and minority and women vendors have the same opportunity to participate before we just say we want to get the lowest costs. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions for Thierry?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I have another thing I want to ask Anita about. Anita, yesterday they talked about the fact that in so many cases, our homes are devalued by the assessor. Do we have any influence over the assessor's office? And I read that a number of studies have found that black-owned homes are undervalued when compared to those of white homeowners. This is especially true in historically black neighborhoods. A 2018 report by the Brookings Institute found that that adds up to $156 billion in cumulative losses for black homeowners. I guess it's not in our purview to decide what the assessor's office does, but could we open up dialogue with them to be sure that they're not devaluating the homes in our neighborhoods? I think one of the statements made yesterday was that we need to solve the devaluation issue that's a silent barrier to building black family wealth. And I think if we could just open up a dialogue with the assessor's office to be sure that our homes are not being assessed at, there's a story about that woman where was she, Indianapolis, who had to get a white guy to come in because her home was so undervalued. She knew that her home had value, but because she was a black woman and she probably had pictures of her family all over the house, they valued it way under the real value of the home. So she got a white guy to come in, took all her pictures of her family out, and then they gave her the right value for the home. So, again, I don't know how much say we have in this, but I would think that we should be able to open up a dialogue with the assessor's office to say, look, we want to be sure that our homes are being valued appropriately. Is that something that we can take on, or is it too much?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a difference between assessors that are doing it for the real estate transaction versus the property appraiser. The property appraiser actually is going to be coming to one of your meetings to talk about the increase in taxable value and what's occurring in Palm Beach County. But the assessors, that's something that's completely on the private sector side, where those property, when somebody's going for a closing or what have you, and they're going to
So those are the people we need to influence then?
Those are the people, yes, those specific entities or individuals that assess property for the purposes of sales transaction is profoundly different than the property appraiser.
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
And
No, are you finished? Okay.
Well, I was just going to speak to her point. One of the things that I read was that they really are in need of diversifying the appraisers. So we encourage many people to become appraisers because that's part of the problem too, not having as many minority appraisers to do the work. And so that was part of what they saw was happening, is that you just didn't have a diverse group of people being appraisers. So that's something you might want to put in your workforce development.
Maybe, Palm Beach County. Sammy, get on that.
There you go.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you wanted me to respond to Commissioner
Yes,
Motel.
go ahead.
Just quickly to say, the presentation yesterday that we participated in was around racial equity and inequities in neighborhoods. And there is an over taxation of devalued properties in, let's call them, challenged neighborhoods. And there's a disconnect between appraised values. And it's a number of issues that affect that. So part of what the Housing Steering Committee is working on is being educated, number one, creating some data models, because Riviera Beach won't be able to attack the issues by itself. It will have to be a collective Palm Beach County stakeholder strategic approach, where we're looking at how has racial inequities over time, not just in the last few years, decades, but over many, many decades, have affected property values in our community, as well as insurance, as well as how people are not able to adequately insure their homes. So educating ourselves, educating our policymakers and our residents about opportunities that we have to get the best value, the highest value out of our community is something that we definitely will be working with. And we're looking forward to having a conversation about various housing strategies and what we can do as a city and within the CRA and with our nonprofit partners to bring just value to our community. So we most definitely will be continuing to work on that, and we'll share the information as we get it with all of you and with the community.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just to follow up, I thought yesterday's meeting was fabulous. Barbara Cheeves, who I think we've used in the past as a consultant, gave a wonderful overview of the various communities in Palm Beach County and how they developed with different neighborhoods. And I think that might be a very interesting presentation for us to see at some point so that we had a good understanding of how things came to pass. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Very good.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say a word. And when we're making sure that the property appraisers are devaluing our properties, one thing we want to make sure too is, because we have a big senior population, and when your property of your house goes up, your property taxes goes up. So we want to make sure that we have a plan for our seniors to make sure that, yeah, the value of their house may go up, but their property taxes are going to go up too. And we want to make sure that they're not going to lose these houses because those taxes are going to go up. So as we're developing a plan, let's look out for our seniors too.
And Madam Chair, if I may, to the mayor's point, as you look to redevelop as well and you increase densities and intensities within certain corridors, you know, the valuation of those properties do go up. So if there's for instance, the 11th Street project that we're looking to bring to light, once that project goes in the ground, the assets and what those properties sell for becomes comparables, and the values of those assets that persons have within that area goes up as well. So there is those things that we have to think about it holistically, but hopefully in some cases, and this is where it really is an education component, that we have folks that are getting their homestead exemption, and if they've moved, that they know that portability goes along with it as well, because then it keeps the growth to 3%, no more than 3%. And so there's certain things that we can do to educate and inform persons to, you know, keep them in the home, because we want to make sure we have a community that you can age in place.
Very good. Any other questions in regards to the CRA's presentation? I have a couple of observations. Speaking to Dr. Botel's question about the heirs, there's a new law that's called the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, which protects or allows the heirs of a property a chance to purchase the entire property before one party can petition and sell it. So these laws that are coming out in regards to heir property will certainly be needed as we look at upgrading our existing housing stock. So that can work for us as we move forward. The second observation is that there's a lot more recreational special event activities instead of more neighborhood revitalization, neighborhood improvement for last year and this year. I just think that we just really need to focus on the areas in the CRA that are, as Mr. Lawson stated, that are blighted, and really put our focus and our money in fixing these neighborhoods up and kind of step away from so many special events and those type of activities. We really have to be able to improve these neighborhoods. A lot of the activities that happen in terms of special events happens at the marina. Some of them happen, I've never seen one happen like in the neighborhood. So I think that we really need to kind of step back from all of these special events here and look at improving the neighborhoods and putting that money to that particular cause instead of other types of special events. But overall, I do like the idea of joint ventures. I think that really will help the CRA to move forward in terms of partnering with other entities to be able to either put on these special events or revitalize neighborhoods as well. Those are just my observations. Any other questions in regards to the CRA? Very good. Mr. Evans?
All right, Madam Chair, the next presentation is going to be made by Mr. Cedric Clark to do stormwater and the public works operation.
Good evening. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can bring that up to you. It'll move. Pick up the whole. Yeah, pick up the whole thing and bring it towards you. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, Pro Tem, council people, council persons, Mayor, Attorney, Mr. Evans. I'll be presenting the Public Works and Stormwater Fiscal Year 21 highlights and accomplishments.
Could you introduce yourself, please, sir?
Oh, Cedric Clark, sorry. Under Community Engagement and Empowerment, continue the Reimagine Riviera Beach initiative and solicitation for design, build, finance, consultants on city fire stations. We also completed design, construction of the library and youth empowerment centers. We also initiated a true facilities master plan for integrating current work over the pavement master plan, updated stormwater master plan, as well as utility district needs. This facility master plan will provide the guidance of decades worth spending to most critical infrastructure by layering the condition of our water, sewer, stormwater, asphalt, curbing, and sidewalks into a matrix. We will move the city to a truly worst first model of infrastructure replacement. For fiscal year 2022, Public Works and Stormwater, our goals are for prosperous and resilient sustainability of economy. We will ensure that the capital projects incorporate a 50-year cycle review. We will also ensure that the capital projects incorporate sea level rise and design components. We'll also select site and construction for City Hall and facility associated buildings. We'll also complete construction of Fire Station 86, 87, and 88. We'll be developing a unified master plan that incorporates the roadway, stormwater, and utilities into one document for 10-year capital priorities. We will be completing an update of the stormwater master plan as well. Our great neighborhoods will ensure that the capital projects incorporate neighborhood beautification elements where possible. We'll also continue to conduct NPDES inspections after rainfall events as well as communicating our services clearly to promote the City Q Alert system and provide a safe environment for our residents. Under the Operation Excellence, we'll be reviewing of invoices for sufficiency within 3 business days of submittal, with final review and approval within 5 business days. We'll review payment applications and submit it to accounts payable, if correct, within 5 business days. We'll also adopt a long-range Planning process to include estimating within 15% of the actual construction costs for projects within 5-year time horizon. Under the government stewardship, we'll complete all capital projects on time within 10% of the bid price. Review on site plans, plats, permit reviews within 10 business days for 90% of the projects and submitted for review. Which will also be enforcing stormwater violation with aggressive inspections and provide employee training with certifications and licenses. And we'll continue to provide preventive maintenance to service localized flooding.
Madam Chair, question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. The aggressive stormwater inspections, is that similar to the 2924 Avenue S storm drain where someone was dumping into the stormwater? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that incident came in Q alert, and we just inspected it and moved forward with that.
Follow up. But by definition, when you said going after violators related to stormwaters, it's that type of, those type of acts?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, good enough.
Continue.
Any questions? Any more questions?
You're finished?
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Clark in regards to public works and stormwater
Madam Chair?
presentation? Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question about under the great neighborhoods where it says conduct NPDES inspections after rainfall events. What exactly is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last part. Say again.
Under great neighborhoods, conduct NPDES inspections after rainfall events?
Yes.
What exactly is that?
That is a report that we report to NPDES, to the EPA every year, and we have to stay in compliance with code and the system that they put forth for us to stay in compliance, pretty much, yeah.
I mean, is it like a rainfall collection? I mean, it collects the rainwater, or?
No, we usually go out, if there's a storm producing that's out about to produce, before, during, or after, we'll go out and do our NPDES inspections. And that is to prevent localized flooding, to prevent any pollutants that's going into the storm
flooding
drains.
part, basically flooding.
Yeah.
It's about flooding.
And pollutants, correct.
Okay, I guess I was going another direction with that. Okay, thank you.
Very
Madam
good.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Clark, when you say complete construction of 86, 87, 88, are we just budgeting the items to get started, groundbreakings? Because I know we're not going to have them completely, they're not going to be completed by the time the fiscal year 2022 is over.
Well, Mr. Evans, can you speak on that?
Certainly. Fire Station 88 is anticipated to be delivered to the city in October of 2022. So that's when we will be looking to occupy that facility. Our goal is to have construction on Station 86 occurring concurrently, because we believe that there's some savings related to economies to scale and the mobilization of resources. So I've tasked the chief for the month of August for us to have a couple of community conversations related to the fire station construction plan and the funding associated with that. So we will be prepared and ready so we can provide the board with the feedback from the community, and you can discuss the funding elements and the bond issuance that we're proposing to help facilitate the construction of both facilities.
Okay. And then follow-up, thank you, Mr. Evans. And then follow-up, making sure that locals get some work, whether it's discretionary funds, or whether it's budgeting, whether it's the sheltered market. I want that to be a focus from the department, to make sure that our locals, our minorities, and our women businesses get some additional work, services, and make sure that we're putting our community to work. So however we can, with every discretionary item that comes before this dais, everything that you're putting to work, make sure that our locals are benefiting from it.
Will do, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Evans, Mr. Clark, I guess I was going to ask, we talked about the crews that does maintenance on the easements and in the alleyways. Is there any possible discussion on increasing that? Is that potentially foreseeable, allowed for in the budget for this upcoming fiscal year?
We currently have vacancies within those operations, and so if we are able to move forward with some of the vacancies that we have in, especially even in Parks and Recreation, we're looking at the maintenance for the alleyway crews on the utility district side as well as the public works side and Parks and Recreation. So we do believe that if we're fully staffed, that we can be able to address some of the challenges that we have with regards to some of those alleyways. And plus, the other side of it is to have the policy discussion with the board about the opportunity to allow for residents to expand their particular properties to deter the city or remove the city from having to maintain those alleyways. Some of those alleyways are intended for utility easements, but a lot of those alleyways, the size of those alleyways, it's not what is needed. So there is situations whereby you can allow for persons within the community to expand their backyard or provide for a better delineation in the alleyway. So we are having some internal conversations like that, and we will be bringing that back to the board for policy considerations.
Thank you.
Any other question for Public Works, Stormwater presentation? Thank you, sir, for your presentation
Thank you.
and for your hard work.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next presenter is Development Services, and Director Clarence Sermons will be making the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, and Madam Attorney. I am, for the record, Clarence Sermons, Director of the Development Services Department. I am very excited to have the opportunity to brag on the exceptional staff of the Development Services Department this evening. And I am going to get into first the accomplishments over the past year and our ambitions for the next year. So starting with prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy, we'll talk about the money that this department and our operations and staff have generated. Over $3.5 million in permit fee revenue have been generated by this department over this same period last year. And the pandemic had a huge impact on our operations, but it did not slow the pace of development in our city. So staff has been working extremely hard to keep up with the development demands of our city. That $3.5 million plus of permit fee revenue translates to over 5,271 permits, which is also over a 30% increase over the same period last year. And to put that number into perspective in the amount of staff work that goes into it, for every permit issued, there are multiple touches by city staff. One, in just intaking the permit, reviewing them for completeness, and then routing them around different departments in the city to make sure everything in the packet meets our regulations, and then issuing the permit and taking the fees for it. And then they have to issue the inspections for it and result all of them. And then they finally issue a certificate of completion for that project. So for every permit issued, there are hours and hours of staff time and thousands of emails and phone calls and communication that goes out. So 5,000 permits is an immense amount of staff work. And we have 3 permit techs, by the way, that's carrying this load. So we're very proud of the amount of work they've done and still maintain a high level of customer service in doing so. In our code compliance division, over $100,000 in fines and fees have been collected from properties. And I will say before I move on, some of the bullet points that I will make are not on the PowerPoint in front of you. So I had a little extra time to think of some things that were left out that I definitely want the board to be aware of. But our Code Compliance Division generates almost $100,000 in revenue for fines and fees for their activities and ensuring that property owners maintain their neighborhoods. For great neighborhoods, we have recently completed our recertification for the CRS or FEMA Community Rating System. This rating on a scale of 1 to 10 dictates how much residents will pay in flood insurance. And we put together a very robust package that was sent to them last week. Actually, we completed it, and we expect our rating to go from 9, which is on the lower end, up 2 spaces to a 7, which will save residents of the community thousands of dollars in flood insurance costs. So that's something that was a lot of work and took a lot of coordination interdepartmentally that we're very proud of. And once the results of our reports come in, we expect it to be very favorable. Our Code Compliance Division has conducted over 1,000 property re-inspections. Again, this involves them going to properties, notifying owners of anything that does not meet our regulations, and then them following up to make sure that those items were either corrected or that additional steps are taken to, as much as possible, effectuate compliance with our regulations. That has also resulted in over 500 notices of violations for this year so far. For operational excellence, we have successfully prepared over 40 items for public meetings for your consideration, and I'm sure you all are aware of all of the work that goes into those packets. We spend a lot of time together here at these meetings in these rooms, and again, staff does a lot to review existing regulations, anything proposed, drafting those resolutions and ordinances, and providing recommendations so that you all can make the best decisions for your constituents. Government stewardship and accountability. When I joined the city a little over a year ago, we were spending approximately $50,000 a month on third-party building services. Since then, we have actually, as of this month, we have fully staffed our building division, starting with our building official and all the way down to 4 building inspectors that have a stake in this city. They work for the city, and we hold them accountable directly for the level of customer service that they provide their inspections and building review work. And we are seeing some excellent progress in our building division, and I'm very proud of the staff that are working there. And other fruit of that division in our outstanding building official, Mr. Michael Grimm, who brings his expertise to the city. We have adopted the city's first building code Chapter 1 amendments since 2004, which allows us to customize how we administer and issue the regulations related to the Florida Building Code to our city residents. Before, there was blanks there, and there were a lot of things that we could not technically enforce because we had not done that. And so every year we will be ensuring, every 3 years when a new code comes out, we will make sure that we update Chapter 1 and our administration of it as well. We've also adopted the city's first property maintenance code since 2004, and this does the most for our code compliance division. As opposed to them issuing a notice of violation saying that something on your property is causing a nuisance, which can be subjective and ambiguous, we have a property maintenance code that specifies that the paint on your home shall be in good condition, and if it's not, we cite that specific section of the code as opposed to saying it's a nuisance and having to make a case in front of the magistrate judge of why paint not being in good condition is a nuisance to the community. So things like that and that specificity in that document go a long way into to us ensuring that our community is well maintained and that we have the tools to make sure homeowners understand how we expect it to be maintained. For community engagement and empowerment, we have issued a new department newsletter. Every quarter, we put out this newsletter that identifies just the trends in development in the city for that 3-month period, different activities that have taken place in the department, additional staff that has been added, but also the numbers of permits for that quarter, the construction valuation, the number of code compliance, vehicle miles traveled, to the number of notices of violations that have been issued, as well as the numbers of our planning and zoning addition, and also the different activities for team building and social events that take place in the department. So we send that out every quarter. One is the next one is upcoming this month. I will make sure everyone here gets a copy of that, but it does keep a pulse on the development environment here in our city and what's going on in this department. So we're very proud of issuing this newsletter and ensuring that the community is engaged and empowered and they know what's going on with development services in this city. We also have added to the Development Services webpage an applications under review button. So every application that's submitted to the planning department, whether it be a zone change request or a plat or a huge shiny new development proposed on the island, that application, whether good or bad, all the materials for it are on the department's website. So before it reaches any public meeting, if it makes it there, it can be viewed online and you can see what's being proposed in our community. So we're proud of getting that page up and running as well. And if you haven't had a chance, please visit the Development Services webpage. We held our first department retreat last summer at the Marina Event Center, and it went a long way for building morale, building teamwork, and getting the department on the same page for the tasks ahead. The tasks ahead at that time. We'll be having the next one next month, and we are proud of the activities that are coming from that. And we also successfully appointed a new Planning and Zoning Board member, and we have some new appointment recommendations coming soon this summer. We take advantage of the opportunity to make sure members of this community are a part of the development review process and members on that board and able to make those recommendations for you before you make your decisions. So that's a summary of the highlights from FY21, and if there are no questions on those, I'll move on to our goals for FY22. Under prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy, we will focus on small businesses in the coming year. We want to make sure that they are aware of the services offered by this department, and most specifically that we're here to assist them in being successful, especially if they are developing a building from the ground up or they're moving into a new existing space. We want the citizens to come to us first. We make ourselves available. If they even just have an idea of a location they want to go to, talk to us before you sign any leases that can get them in a situation that's unfavorable because they find out after they've signed a lease that the use that they are proposing isn't allowed in that location, and they're stuck paying monthly rent amounts to a landlord that may or may not be sympathetic to the situation that they're in. So we make sure that we will be making sure that we're advertising our availability and our services, and we encourage you all, as your constituents come to you about their prospective endeavors, that you remind them that before they sign anything, make sure they speak to Development Services so we can ensure they have all the information necessary to embark on that process. We want to continue to improve our coordination between other organizations that are interested in the development of the city, including the CRA, Port of Palm Beach Housing Authority, making sure we are meeting with them and having regular modes of communication to ensure we are helping each other make this city successful. We, very importantly, want to make sure that proposed land development in Riviera Beach provides the best value proposition to the city possible. And in that, I mean that land is a finite resource, and we have a limited amount of it here in Riviera Beach, and any proposal to develop it must be met with scrutiny and making sure that anyone that wants to build or develop here is bringing the best product possible to our citizens, and that once they make their money and leave, that we're left with something that will retain its value and that will facilitate the vision that we have for our city being the best that it can be. So before we bring anything before this board, we make sure that we've asked all of the right questions to make sure they're giving us the best they can here in Riviera Beach. In that same vein, many companies, especially the larger ones, say that we're bringing X number of jobs to the city, and we're going to make sure we focus on local residents for hiring, and we want to make sure that we're following that and tracking that and facilitating it as much as possible and putting it in writing where when it makes sense. We also plan to partner with the CRA and this event center to help facilitate potential job fairs of large employers so that when we say that we want you to make available positions to our residents, that we can also say we already have a facility for you. We can take care of the event coordination. We just need you to get your recruiters here, and we'll assist you in getting the residents out. So that's something we want to partner with the CRA and see if we can make happen in the coming year. In terms of great neighborhoods and our goals for fiscal year 22, we want to improve the aesthetics of older neighborhoods by increasing the effectiveness of code enforcement and provide additional resources to help property owners come into compliance. This is speaking most closely to the Property Maintenance Code Chapter Repeal and Replace Ordinance that has already gone through this board on first reading, that will be coming back at the next meeting on second reading. We believe that streamlining the process, simplifying it, and making sure property owners know what options they have throughout the process is going to allow the division to be more efficient. And that ordinance also creates a revenue stream that allows us to assist the homeowners that may not have the resources to come into compliance with certain aspects of their home. So utilizing those funds and partnering with other organizations, we believe that we can make a difference in the code compliance operations in the city. One of my primary goals for the next fiscal year is to create a task force to create a rental property program for the city. You all are well aware of the very high rental property rates that we have in the city. And the goal of this task force would be to get together our code compliance division, police, legal, and others involved in making sure that we are properly monitoring our rental properties, that we have been very clear on what our standards are. For example, the property maintenance code that we recently passed, making sure they get a copy of it when that BTR is approved, and we say, hey, these are our standards. We're going to make sure we hold them to it, making sure that we pay close attention to who the renters are and how their properties perform. If we're getting multiple issues of code enforcement on those properties, we think, I believe that we can come up with a program that allows us to incentivize them to do better and pay closer attention on what tools we have to gain compliance for those who are underperforming. But the numbers of rental properties are extremely high, and we think part of the reason is that we don't have a program to effectively monitor how they operate, and we want to build upon the tools that we're developing and the additional coordination that will be taking place in this department.
Let me ask you a question. Do other cities, are you looking at other cities and how they deal with rental properties, or is this something because this is unique in terms of our city, the sheer number of rental properties?
I think the number in our city is a unique scenario, but again, in the very preliminary stages of research, I know that there are programs that exist that allow cities to, in uncontroversial ways, to more effectively provide oversight of rental properties. For example, performance-based licensing, those types of programs do exist, and we want to look at that. If someone's performing well and they come back for a BTR renewal, we want to make sure we have additional conversations in those situations. But again, this is in the very early stages, but that is one of my high priority goals for the incoming fiscal year. We also want to continue working with city administration on working on a pilot program for neighborhood redevelopment. We've had some early talks. There were some presentations already on the Saturday workshops on different partnerships the city can engage in for additional funds to ensure that we can turn around neighborhoods that are underperforming. So that is also a priority of the department under Great Neighborhoods. For operational excellence, of course, we want to continue to improve the efficiency of the permit process. We have moved along and gotten rid of our backlogs that resulted from the pandemic and our change in operations and working remotely. But we are also looking forward and working diligently on the launch of EnerGov, which will allow or facilitate an electronic permitting process for the city. It will be launched in phases, and our target date is the end of this summer. At the conclusion of the Labor Day weekend, my directive to my staff is to turn on the switch, and we're going to go live with it. And we're working very hard around the clock to make sure everything is ready for that time. And we know that will, even though we will turn on only certain parts of the software in phase 1, that it will make a big difference for our residents in being able to track their permits as they come through the city.
Madam Chair. So,
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. So when I'm in Publix, somebody comes up to me and says, how about that permit for my driveway? I can open my iPhone and say, oh, let me look it up. Oh, here it is. Right, when is that date?
That will be in the first part of it. It will be in phase 1. Yes, if you have an address or a permit number, the electronic software system will allow you to identify that property and see the status of any permits associated with it. So we're excited about it. And again, it's a lot of work to launch a new software system, but we're working very diligently, and we know how important that is to this community, and especially our development community. We intend to continue to improve the efficiency and efficacy of the efficacy of our code compliance division. We were recently awarded funds through the CDBG grant program, and that's going to allow us to put up to 4 additional code compliance officers on our streets. And we really intend to, with different programs, to make sure property owners are held to the highest standard reasonable for maintaining their properties, and that's especially our commercial properties on our main thoroughfare. So those additional bodies will give us the manpower to observe those situations and also get those cases drawn up to get before a magistrate judge who ultimately makes the decisions on any penalties that will apply to those residences. So we're looking forward to those funds becoming available on October 1st. The Development Services office spaces will be reimagined as well. We are probably one of the few areas in the City Hall building that still looks like it did in the 70s when the building first came around. So we're excited about some changes coming in there. The first step will be the old council chamber space that is going unused right now. Using modular furniture, we're going to create a permit lobby, a modern permit lobby that has space for people to come in, wait for their numbers to be called. That'll be displayed on a screen, and they will come to a one-stop shop for all of their development services needs. So whether they need help with a permit, they need to speak with a planner about a project that they have going on, or they have code enforcement questions about a violation that they may have found at their door. It'll be a one-stop shop lobby where they can see a staff member related to all of the services that Development Services provides. And in those changes and consolidation of services, we also have had discussions with the BTR, with the finance office about the BTR operation. It's currently housed in their department, but there's a lot of overlap in our planning and buildings and other operations of development services. So we believe there will be synergy when that operation comes to this department, and also can be serviced in this one-stop shop permit lobby that we'll develop for the building, and we will be able to better target those rental BTRs who may be underperforming, and better provide service for those who are looking to create a small business and have some questions about their BTR and what's required for it. So we are looking forward to that large task, but we do believe it will be in the best interest of the city. As it relates to government stewardship and accountability, this department will continue to be prudent with revenues that come through our doors, and we will continue transparency in all decisions made by staff, be it our building inspectors or our planners who make recommendations and review plans. We do believe it's very important that everyone understands what we're reviewing, what we look for when we review applications against regulations, and that there's transparency there. And again, a big step to that is getting those applications online so everyone can see what development is proposed even before it comes to a public hearing. And then finally, community engagement and empowerment. Development services will continue to empower citizens, effectuate land development, citizens to effectuate land development decisions in the city. We'll continue to encourage citizens to come be a part of the public hearing process and make sure their notices are sent out for any time there's something proposed in their area. But we also push developers, if there's a project that could potentially be controversial, we tell them that they need to get into the community and talk to the residents before it comes to this meeting, so you all can be sure that the public has had the opportunity to weigh in on anything proposed in the area, and especially by those residents who could be affected by it. And so that concludes the information that I wanted to present to you all about our accomplishments and goals and development services, and I am available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Development Director?
Just a comment, thank you. I have to say, the responsiveness in the Development Services Department has increased 100-fold in the last year, I have to say. I get calls all the time now, and I never got these before, about how great Grace is, or this, you know, other people, not just Grace, you, everyone. It's just a pleasure. It's a real pleasure to get those kinds of calls, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I had definitely written down something I wanted to mention, but you took it already about the online permitting, because I remember, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we were talking about the new IT plan that we had, and that was supposed to come out a couple of years ago. At least we were hoping it was. So it compares, it shows what you're doing in this department, and is greatly appreciated, I know, with the business community, because one of the main complaints we've had for many, many, many years has been that we're so antiquated. So I'm glad to see that we're getting to modern world right now. So thank you all, and also with the inspectors, increasing the amount of inspectors that we have so that they can get out there, because a lot of the complaints we get, obviously, is just, you know, well, how did no one ever see that car sitting there for the past year? And so I appreciate all that you all are doing and how you're increasing the efficiency of the department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Development Services
Madam Chair?
Director? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sermons. Comprehensive plan, I didn't see anything in the 2022. Is there anything about the comprehensive plan when we're going to be doing a full redo, addressing this, putting this towards the budget?
Yes, one of the items that did not make the list was our restructuring of the planning division to have a full-time long-range planner to focus on the comprehensive plan. Currently, that person is focusing on a backlog of an update that we had to provide to the state, and we expect that to be concluded by the end of this fiscal year, and simultaneously that person is developing our next steps with the comprehensive plan. A portion of it is related to the state and our regular review update of the plan, and what they say has to be completed right now in the short term. But ultimately, our plan is to, element by element, address the most dire needs of the comprehensive plan and what needs to be updated first. So I can say that our future land use element as well as our housing element are at the top of the list of what we want to see updated for the comprehensive plan, and those aspects we know will have trickle effects throughout the comprehensive plan. So in the coming year, at the minimum, we will be looking into those two elements of the comp plan.
So I guess my concern is that we're looking to spend about $500 million worth of development over the next 3 years, and priority should be the comprehensive plan, because if we're looking at intensities and densities, if we're looking at development throughout our CRA corridors, throughout all over Riviera Beach, I think that should become a priority for us to really address that comp plan, that master plan. And overall, I mean, we can't spend that kind of money without knowing what the entire structure and development and what our city should look like. So my concern, and colleagues, I really want us to take a look at this and see if this is something we want to send back to staff, that we should possibly implement a comprehensive plan study and update because we're going to be spending money. We've already approved multiple fire stations. We're looking at, and we're having community conversations about a new city hall. So I think that needs to be a priority. It's something we've been talking about, but we need to make it a priority versus waiting 1 or 2 fiscal years to get to work on that. Just a recommendation. We'll have more discussion about that, I'm sure, but that would be my recommendation for staff to come back and possibly incorporate this into FY22. Broadway developments, arts and public places were some of the concerns and some of the things that I want to see addressed to make sure that this is within FY22. And then, I had some notes on, thank you for getting the online system. I know we've had multiple conversations and discussions. You did say Labor Day. Are we going to be rolling out a training program for actually teaching about this online process? I know that's something we discussed, but do you have a plan for that of how we're going to actually teach our residents of how to actually utilize this software?
Yes, that is part of the plan in phase 1. The residents will not be able to use the software to submit for permits. That is built into the software, but we won't be launching that aspect in phase 1. However, being able to log in to view the status of a permit will be part of it, and we'll definitely make sure there are resources to the community to make sure they can do that part. And we'll also work on making sure that you as council members and Dr. Botel, in case she gets a question in public, also knows how to go in there, because you don't necessarily have to be the permit holder to view what has been submitted. It's all public information, so we'll make sure you all as well are able to log in there to view anything that may be relevant to you.
Okay, and then what phase are we looking to actually allow for permits to go online?
That would be phase 3. We don't have a date for it at the time.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the goals under city administration is facilitate amendments to the comprehensive plan and zoning code to allow for improved redevelopment amendments, or to allow for improved redevelopment amendments to the comprehensive plan and zoning code to facilitate economic development and redevelopment. So administration, we have it in as one of our goals.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. And then finally, I really want us to have a real conversation about the heightened densities on Broadway. So I'm not sure if that's something that is going to be more so in the CRA territory, but I know that is going to go through your department. So when are we going to actually really have that discussion so that we can move forward with those items of intensities and densities down there?
If I can respond on that one, the downtown future land use area, which includes Broadway, Blue Heron, and over into Singer Island, is a part of the scope of work that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is working on currently. So we've already started, and they have that as a part of their scope of work. So those areas of the city that arguably have the most pressure for development and redevelopment are already underway to have the densities, intensities, which are included in the comp plan, be evaluated for changes and improvements, as well as the associated land development codes and our ordinances that regulate the details of the development there. So that's already underway, and the broader look into the other future land uses in our comprehensive plan and our land development codes is what we will have is really step 2 to that. But those areas under the most development pressure are already underway for updates.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions for the Developmental Services Director? Thank you so much, sir, for your hard work, your staff's hard work. We've come a long way with this department in terms of how it was last year, so we certainly appreciate all of your creative and ways in how you deal with, some of the issues that we have regarding permits and building and that type of thing. So we really appreciate all of your hard work.
Thank you.
If there are not any other questions, I want to ask the board, it's about 2:43. We have a 10 o'clock stop. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more department areas to look at, and I know that there is no way that we'll be able to look at them all tonight. So what is your pleasure? We have a 10 o'clock date that 10 o'clock stopping point that is what was advertised. So do we want to stop at this point? Because it is 9:45.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't think we should start and then stop in the middle. Do we have any alternate dates to, I know when we do this, we normally split this in two. I don't think we normally do all of them in the same night anyway.
Yeah, we can certainly, we do have, your meeting on the 28th is your visioning session, but your subsequent meeting, we can bring the departments that weren't complete back to you all for review. So there will be another opportunity that this could come back to you. And even a situation whereby, depending on what the agendas look like, we can keep some of them light and finish them at a regular council meeting as well.
Yeah, I think we should spread them out, you know?
Yeah, but will they be ahead of what we need to do as far as dealing with the budget part of it? So we'll see all of this before we start getting to the numbers?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, very good.
Sorry, y'all.
Sorry, Mr. Blankenship.
Sorry, all of y'all. No, everybody.
Well, he was sitting there waiting.
I know, I wanted to tell him just hold on.
Tell him first. But the rest of the members, I know that you guys have been sitting here since 6 o'clock, and we really apologize. I don't think that we anticipated that each of the departments would go this long, but we are appreciative that we can get this much information because it only comes by once a year. When you come to regular city council meetings, they're 2-3 minute presentations, and we have to keep the meeting moving. But this opportunity gives us a time to kind of dive into each of the departments and what they have accomplished and what they want to do for the following year. So we apologize for not being able to get to all of you guys tonight. You will be rescheduled across the meetings before our full budget hearings. So we apologize again tonight. Sorry, Mr. Blankenship. We apologize, and we're going to move on to finish out this agenda as it is almost 10 o'clock tonight. Mr. Evans, is there anything else that we have that you want to have comments for?
No, Madam Chair, none at this time.
Any comments from the board?
No, I'm sorry, too.
Any comments from the mayor?
No.
Any comments from our attorney?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
And this meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Shama, I'm sorry. He got me.